Welcome to Soulcast Podcast. My name is Henrik. I'm here to discover the unknown and bring you with me on this adventure by speaking my truth and being inspired by others. Fuck yeah. And we go when you're ready.
Okay, I'm good.
Yeah? Let's go.
Let's do it.
Hello, Chris.
How you doing, Henrik?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
It's the best time of year. Long days, great weather. Summers are not oppressive heat. The humidity is totally manageable. It's the most comfortable spot to be in, I think, on the planet right now.
Yeah, Estonian summer is beautiful. I was in Australia and I missed Estonian summer. Yeah. So, Chris, you're from California. You have a PhD in nuclear physics. You are a co-founder of TriQuantum
Technologies.
Technologies. And you've been a pianist from 5 years old.
Yeah, I started at 3, but I became a concert pianist from age 5 to age 12 for Suzuki Institute.
Crazy. Crazy artist, man. So I don't know where to start, but I like this physics stuff. This is out of my range. That's what I like to learn. Hopefully you can break it down so a simple person like me or some of the who watch this can just, soak this information in. You helped to go create element 110 and 106. So let's start off how?
Okay, well, this was done at the University of California, Berkeley, and I was a graduate student at the time. And basically, we were working at the 88-inch cyclotron and also the what they call the linear accelerator.
What is cyclotron?
Cyclotron? It's a particle accelerator. It's a circular particle accelerator, as opposed to and that's where we made element 106. We confirmed it. So because we confirmed it, we had the privilege to name it, and we named it after the first living person ever to have an element named after him. That was my thesis advisor, Dr. Glenn Seaborg. And he, because he's a Nobel laureate and he had discovered plutonium and 9 other elements, and he'd also served as an advisor to 10 different presidents. And my gosh, just the longest laundry list of accomplishments one can imagine. I mean, he's certainly one of the greatest scientists of the last century. And so it was our intention to try to get the naming committee, IUPAC, to agree to naming element 106 after him, even though he was still alive. And they agreed. So that was a big win for us. And when he received the award or the designation, he said that being immortalized on the periodic table of elements was by far the greatest honor he could have received, even beyond that of winning the Nobel Prize. So that was a great time, and of course we were in the news for this accomplishment. And then sometime later, we were working with Al Ghiorso, who had devised this linear accelerator, and he called it the HILAC, High Energy Linear Accelerator, which was also part of University of California, Berkeley. And we did many runs of accelerator time to generate all of one atom, and we call our chemistry atom at a time chemistry. And the half-lives are very short. And after all that experiment time, which ran weeks, we generated just one atom. And so we published a paper on that. And there was some debate as to whether the atom is legitimate or not, back and forth. But all our efforts did not go to waste, because all the intellectual property we created was then utilized by this German team in Darmstadt. And with basically, I always say, we all stand on the shoulders of giants. And so in this case, they stood on our shoulders, and they were able to generate many atoms of element 110. And so it was conclusive that element 110 at that point had been created. And the Germans named it Darmstadtium after where they were located. So these were two, wonderful times as a graduate student that, couldn't have been better. And Glenn Seaborg wanted to roll out the red carpet for me and have me work at basically wherever I wanted to in the United States, at any national lab I chose. And he could make the calls because he was so politically powerful. He could make anything happen. And the sad thing is, for him anyway, is that I did a 180. And I actually had a real love in trading stocks, stock speculation, analyzing the stocks, the fundamentals, the charts. And I was already generating a very top-rated track record that started in 1991. And so essentially by 1993, I actually wanted to quit being a graduate student. But I realized if I didn't have this PhD under my belt, there's no way any Wall Street firm is going to hire me because I don't have a Harvard MBA. I have something completely different. So it's a good thing that everyone talked me out of quitting. And by not quitting, all these great things happened. These elemental discoveries happened, being in the news. And so my fifth year, basically at Berkeley keeps its students for 5 years in the PhD programs. You never graduate in 4. If you're that good, they're going to keep you for 5. Of course, some take longer than 5, depending. But the fifth year, I was writing my thesis, and I was.
What's this?
My thesis was the chemical and physical properties of element 104, Rutherfordium. And basically, I was using the 88-inch cyclotron to do these studies. I found the intellectual aspects of what I was doing fascinating. For instance, Einstein's theory of relativity springs to life in my work because part of the research I was doing was to prove Glenn Seaborg's thesis. He had a theory that as elements get heavier in this part of the periodic table, they actually get smaller. They shrink. Now that's counterintuitive. We all know that as an element gets bigger and bigger, it naturally gets not only more dense, it doesn't just have more protons, neutrons, electrons, but its ionic radius tends to increase as well. That's why, an element 90 is going to always be bigger than element, say, 40. But in this case, what I showed was there is actually a relativistic contraction, meaning if you look at the innermost electrons in a very heavy element like 104, the innermost electrons start to approach the speed of light. Now, Einstein's theory says as a particle approaches the speed of light, it gains mass. So that is what was happening. And with that mass gain, their orbit, their orbital radius actually shrinks. So because the innermost electrons are now closer to the nucleus because of their gain in mass, the outermost electrons, everything shrinks. Everything comes in as well. So the ionic radius of 104 was actually smaller than 103, smaller than 102. So this was proven out. His theory was being proven out in part by my research. And I found it fascinating that, Einstein's theory of relativity has always been fascinating to me, but to see it actually in real life, working in real life, was a lot of fun for me as a major thesis project. However, as much as I enjoyed working at these particle accelerators, it wasn't my love. There's a big difference between really enjoying and liking something and that you're good at, as opposed to something you are just thoroughly passionate about. And I was thoroughly passionate about trading, and I knew I didn't want to make the mistake of like a lot of these young upstarts who say, "Oh, I'm going to be the best." I didn't want to make that mistake, but I just deep down felt, no, I really think I am the best, because I had already had 3 good years under my belt, and then 4 good years, and then 1995 came along, and I launched one of the first 3,000 websites back in January 1995, Virtue of Selfish Investing. And this was a great year for the market. I was nailing all the stocks that were actually moving up the most. Not all of them, but I was getting enough of them that the number of subscribers, even back in those days, we were getting $90 checks in the mail multiple of these every day. And as students, grad students, $90 is a lot. But now when you're multiplying $90 by 10, 20, 30, 50 users, 100 users, I mean, the number of people subscribing to my site just exploded. And it was a great experience. I ran the site for a year. And at that point, I got a job offer from William O'Neill, who was my first choice ahead of all the Wall Street firms because of his track record. I figured, well, I worked for Glenn Seaborg, who's one of the top scientists in the world. I might as well work for one of the top traders in the world. And when O'Neill offered me the job, that was, I like to say that the first day I ever worked for him was the last day I ever worked in my life. So part of the condition, though, in working for him is that I cannot run a competing product. So basically it was shut down your site and work for O'Neill, or keep your site running and don't work for O'Neill. So it was an obvious no-brainer decision to close the site down, which was a shame because it was, a great moneymaker and it was just growing and growing. But working for O'Neill was the dream job of dream jobs. I mean, he was true to his word that he said, you're a different guy, don't know what to make of you because you don't have the Harvard MBA, you don't have all these distinguished characteristics that we'd like to see. But instead, you put two elements on the periodic table and you've published a lot of work. And I think you've got what it takes. I think you've got the mental firepower to actually make a big difference here. And he said, if you basically rise to my level of expectation, you will get promoted very fast. And he was very true to his word. So my first promotion was 3 months after starting. And then after that point, I got a job offer actually from one of the fund managers I was visiting, because part of this promotion involved selling one of their chart products. So the fund manager actually was a nuclear physics PhD like I was. And he even had the same briefcase that I used as a grad student. It was really uncanny. And I gave 3 visits to him. He bought the product, and then he made me a job offer. He said, you're selling, you're sales. You're not meant for sales. You're meant for stock trading and portfolio management and analysis. Come work for me. So I gave notice at the company. And one of O'Neill's right-hand men, who's been at the company for like probably 8 years, he immediately went to O'Neill. He was in a panic. He said, you can't leave. Please don't tender your resignation. Please stay for at least a day or two. I need to tell Bill O'Neill this. And the next thing I know, a few hours later, I get a call from O'Neill's secretary saying, Mr. O'Neill would like to see you. So I walk into his office, and he proceeds to pitch me for the next 45 minutes on why I should stay at the company and run money for him, which was the whole point in me coming to the company in the first place. And that was like one of those moments in life where you just will never forget. And you're smiling inside so much. But I was just like, you had me at the first sentence, you didn't have to go through a 45-minute pitch. And so from that point on, I started managing his own personal wealth. And what he did was he picked the top guys around the United States. And as a circle, actually, I brought in 2 of them. Of course, he vetted them. But this circle, I was the 3rd guy chosen. And this circle expanded to about 12 traders by 1999. And I started doing this for him in 1997. And I continued all the way through 2001. So I did 5 years of portfolio management for him. And every single year, I was the number 1 performer out of this stable of top traders. And we were all competing with each other, because the better we did, the more money we got from O'Neill. And because I was doing so well, it was, like I said, it was a dream job beyond dream jobs. We were at the right time, right place in the market. The market was in this .com boom, which ended in March of 2000. And interestingly, every single one of his seasoned traders, we were all back in cash. 3 days, no later than 4 days off the mid-March market top in 2000. We're all competing, so I wasn't telling anyone I'm selling. I just saw the signals to sell. We had no idea that was the end of the bull market. I just knew that after that point of going to cash, there was very little trading to do for the next 3 years. I mean, the rest of 2000, I think I might have put on just a handful of trades, small money. So all that money that I had made, all those huge profits, I made I made triple digits in that first quarter actually of 2000. So I gave back virtually none of it because I didn't do much. And that was the big problem with Wall Street, is that all these fund managers were not good at timing the market. So they stayed in too late, too long, and it hurt their funds. We had a guy who was running about $350 million fund, and by the year 2001, he was down something like 50%. It was from his peak. And I told him, I said, look, I know it's difficult to sell because you didn't sell when you should sell. I mean, there's a saying, the first sell is the easiest sell, because when you wait and it goes lower and lower, it gets psychologically more difficult to sell at the lower level. I said, what you should do is just sell half. You can do that. Sell half of everything. Because if the market goes lower, then you've done good by your clients and your fund will not get destroyed. So that's what he did. And then he ended up sending me this case of Dom Perignon champagne as a thank you. So later that year. So, but I think most fund managers in the business, they got destroyed. I mean, from the peak in March of 2000 to the bottom, the market bottom, which was, I think, in December of 2002, the NASDAQ lost 78% of its value, which is the most it's ever lost in its entire history. So yeah, it was devastating. And I know a lot of people who gave up their jobs to start their own hedge funds and things in the year 2000. There was just like no one survived because no one knew to stay out of the market. Everyone kept trading and over trading and over trading. And in fact, there were people who tried to short the market in 2001 and they had massive losses. Even though the market was going lower in 2001 overall, there were still these sharp rallies because when the market's going higher, it takes the stairs. And it's a very like almost there's a nice gentle uptrend to back then. This is in the 90s, not today's markets, but back then there were predictable uptrends, and the volatility is pretty manageable. However, when a market goes down, it takes the trap door, and so you get these huge drops that happen really fast. It sucks a lot of short traders in, and then the market goes straight back up again. You get these like V bottoms, and it's just if people keep doing that, they're gonna lose 20% every time they do that. And before they know it, by the end of 2001, some of these people were down easily 70, 80% of lost principal from trying to short. So yeah, shorting's a tricky game. It's not something that I really have ever gotten involved in. So I pretty much stayed out from March of 2000 to March of 2003. March of 2003 was the first rebuy signal I got. In fact, in Amazon and eBay. They had finally traced out their whole basing pattern, and they were the survivors of all these .coms that went to zero because of deficient business models. And so I started reinvesting into Amazon and eBay in early 2003. And then there were other stocks that started to move, and the bull market was back. And of course, 2002 was the market low. So then since then, the market's been going higher and higher, with your few exceptions like 2008. Which was, again, devastating for a lot of people because of the financial collapse. My market timing model actually made a lot of money in 2008 because the market timing model that exists on, it's www.selfishinvesting.com. That's my website. That timing model looks at buying and selling pressure in the chart patterns and in leading stocks. So it has enough information to go to a buy signal or a sell signal, a short signal rather, depending on what's going on. So in 2008, in September, it had a short sell signal and it sat on it. So that one signal alone, if you had just invested in, say, the NASDAQ composite, like the triple Qs, you're up like close to 40% in just a few weeks because the market collapsed so fast. Before it, of course, went back to a cash signal after that and pocketed the profits. So 2008 was a great year for the model. And it has a great tendency to catch these rare situations in the market. Like in March of 2020, we had the COVID situation, so everything collapsed. Like in 2008, even gold, everything, Bitcoin. In 2020, everything was down, huge. And my model was on a sell signal. So in that 1 month, in March of 2020, it was up something like 30-some percent. It was a great month for the model. So it's nice because you can make money in both directions. And with stocks, it's very easy to go short, or even buy, you buy the inverse ETFs. So when the market goes down, these things go up. They make money for you, and they're very liquid. You could do the same thing in cryptocurrencies. Now that we have a lot of trading platforms that allow for shorting in size. You can do futures shorting. You can do margin shorting. You can do individual coin shorting. It's a lot different than 2018 when the platforms were very thin and sketchy, and it's not a place you'd want to necessarily put your money because it could get hacked. So actually, if we flash forward to 2018 and go from stocks to crypto now, my metrics issued a major sell signal in January of 2018. So I started to sell my cryptocurrencies, and by the end of the month, I had sold virtually everything. I just kept the core position in Bitcoin and a small position in one other coin. But other than that, I was in cash. And I had no idea that the big bull market was over. I just knew that my metrics were saying this is a major sell signal. And they had not issued that sell signal since early 2014. So it's a very rare event. But all the metrics were pointing to sell.
When was the first time you invested in cryptocurrency?
The first time was January 2013 when I bought Bitcoin, and it was around low teens at the time. And actually, it was interesting because by coincidence, a few weeks before, I had given this charity concert performance with other artists as well in London. And one of the people in attendance was Andy Wright, the famous producer who put Simply Red on the map. And he worked with Pavarotti and a number of other major acts that he monetized. So he invited me to his studios in London, and he made a business proposal. And he had a contract in hand. And he said, I'd like you to be one of my artists. I know what to do. I'm very good at it. I've monetized Simply Red. I put these, made them, stars out of them. And we had this back and forth chat for a couple hours. Basically, I told him, I'm running 2 companies and I'm very involved in those. And what you're asking, what he actually said, he already had done his due diligence because he already knew that I was very busy. And he said, if you sign, you have to give me your word that you're going to give me 100%. He said, otherwise it's not going to work. And I said, I'm honored. I'd actually talked to my dad because my dad, who's a legend in the music industry, he always said, don't sign unless it's Sony. But when I told him this is Andy Wright, he immediately said, congratulations. This is big. He goes, you have my blessing if you want to sign with Andy. And a couple weeks, I thought long and hard because I told Andy, I said, I'm going to need time to think this over. This is a big shift. So a couple weeks later, Bitcoin basically fell into my lap is the best way to put it. More like I knew about Bitcoin the year before. People had told me about it. I looked into it. I said, this is fascinating stuff, but that's kind of where it ended. When I saw a chart of Bitcoin about 2 weeks after the meeting with Andy. That's when I fell off my chair and I said, oh my God, these are such predictable charts. These are the cleanest things I've ever seen. There's so much money that can be made. I wish I had started this 2 years ago. I wish I'd seen a chart. And so I immediately called Andy and I said, you know what, Bitcoin, I really have to, I'm going to do a major pivot, but it's not going to be in the music. It's going to be in the Bitcoin and blockchain tech. And so what happened, we shelved the project where it still is shelved to this day, many years later. I suppose the invitation would still be there if I ever get the time to do music seriously. I would love to do that, but blockchain has consumed more and more of my life over the years, and trading the cryptocurrencies, and no regrets. I mean, this is the future. This is the new era that the world is going to transition into.
How old are you right now?
Oh, I'd like to say I am biologically 25 because I biohack a lot. But as far as the actual age number, the body hears what the mind says, and so it's not even in my registry. They call me a Cylon, they call me timeless. So I says, you know what? You can kind of do a deep dive into my background, and some of you might come up with a very, very old number, and you guys are going to scratch your heads. You're going to think, that's impossible. No, it's possible. The biohacking thing is not a new thing. There are things combined with genetics that you can do to stall your aging, maybe even regress your aging. Dr. David Sinclair of Harvard University actually took mice. For the first time anyone's done this, he took old mice, and you could see them on video, and they're slow and they look like an 80-year-old man. And he regresses them down to young mice, like a 25-year-old, 20-year-old. And their fur gets soft again. They can do the wheel really fast. They can do the maze really fast. It's all documented. No one's done this before. And he did this with certain substances that he takes, that I take, that other people can finally take. It's commercial grade. However, we're humans, we're not mice. So these are things that certainly help slow the aging process, or even regress the aging process. But I believe what Ray Kurzweil, the noted futurist from MIT, said some time ago. He said in 25 years, we will have reached the longevity escape velocity, meaning for every year you live, medical science will allow you to live longer than a year, meaning we will have reached potential immortality because of medical science. Now, he said this several years ago. So I've told my parents, I said, look, by my calculations, I think we're going to get there probably in 15 years, maybe 15 to 20 years. So if you can just stay around for another 15 years, you reach that tipping point. And so, and I have them taking substances and things that they notice difference, energy difference, clarity of thought, things like that. These, of course, are non-addictive. These are enhancers. So if you stop taking them, there's no issue. It's just you get the benefits while you do take them. It's not like caffeine, which is more of a poison than anything. It is a stimulant that works. In small doses, there's nothing wrong with it. But it's not like some of these other substances, which are actual neuroenhancers. So they actually improve the quality of your thinking, the clarity, and there is an effect, permanent effect, I believe some of these substances have on the brain in a good way. So, but again, science is been researching these things, but a lot of it is not commercially available yet because, FDA obviously is very strict. Other countries have certain restrictions as well. But there's already ample evidence if you go to sites like Reddit where this is discussed and people have taken some of these things, and I research it myself, that these are some of these are available now.
You can't tell the names of those products?
Oh, what I would suggest is the listeners go to a site called science.bio, B-I-O. Mm-hmm. They have hundreds of compounds on there. You can buy them and they don't say what they do. What you do is you type the name of the compound into Reddit or just a Google search engine, and then you can learn all about that compound. And Reddit users are notorious for doing deep dives into these things and talking about them at length. So after vetting some of these substances, I haven't had the time to go through more than 20, 25 of these things. And out of those, there's 5 that are interesting. Again, these are chemical compounds. So off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you, but if you have show notes, I can send you these compounds for the benefit of the listeners, so they can then just go and see for themselves. Okay, I found these to be useful, so maybe they might as well.
I can put the link down below so they can recharge themselves and get younger.
Absolutely, and not only that. I mean, you feel you have more energy, you have more clarity. Everything is just a few degrees better. And it stays. Just because you stop using these things doesn't mean you go back to your set point, which is the interesting thing. And that's the same with like NMN. Dr. David Sinclair, if you look at pictures of him when he was in his early 30s, he looks old. He looks like he's 40-something. And he said that it was a stressful time of his life. Now I think he's 53 or 54, and he looks like he's 20-something. I mean, it's remarkable. There's something good going on here. He looks so young. You see him in interviews on YouTube, and I mean, maybe early 30s, but he still looks like a kid now. It's really great, and he's a genius with what he's doing. His research is Nobel laureate worthy. I think he's going to continue to make some major breakthroughs, but he could be the guy, and he's working with other top scientists as well, that could push us over that tipping point that Kurzweil talked about.
What is the motivation behind those people? Like, what they're trying to do? Like, what's the bigger picture?
Well, just better quality of life and longer life.
Hmm.
And the idea of longer life, although could be really, it could be like immortality in the sense, if you think of a car never dies. You can always replace the parts. So a car is immortal. Human beings, same thing with stem cell technology and CRISPR and DNA editing, all these things that are at the forefront now. I think the sky's just the beginning with human longevity. I definitely foresee a point where we will have the choice to live on and on and on. Of course, it doesn't exclude, a one-off where, if you get crushed by a tractor or something, or you drown, you're dead. That's it, game over. But if you like most people, and that doesn't happen, I think for most people, they could end up living for indefinitely, if nothing unforeseen happens. And there was a very good stem cell friend of mine. She started into stem cell research before the world knew what stem cells were, and this goes back to 1999. It's way back. And we used to have these conversations, and she said there's no doubt in her mind that we will be at several hundred years and be like, a 20-year-old. It's not like we're going to age to 700 and be all crinkly and wrinkly and the quality of life when you age regress, like with David Sinclair, he looks more like a kid now than ever. He acts like it. He's brilliant. There's all this energy. I mean, it's a fantastic phenomenon because quality of life is everything. So we don't want to be. I wouldn't want to be like a 90-year-old for any length of time. But I like being a 25-year-old or 20-something-year-old with all the energy and all the clarity of thought. It's great.
Yeah, that's one of those things what I have thought of past 2 days really seriously. As my stepfather is in a hospital right now, I hope everything's all right. But the reality is that he's 55, he has troubles with his heart, and sad that only 55 and like almost end of life. It's so close. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen next. I'm really sad that people like this are going, but and.
What's his
Quality of life? That's what I'm meaning. Like, I want to find out how I can still be healthy in 55. So I need to take care of my 80-year-old self right now, because I don't have, maybe 40, I take my shit together. No, it doesn't happen like this. I need to start taking more seriously my health. I'm 24 and I'm talking like, hey, my health is, but yeah, you had a question?
Yeah, it's never too late, but it's better that someone starts the earlier the better, because it can accumulate. It's cumulative. However, what's nice is that what Sinclair is showing is that even if you live a very reckless life, you can, with these new technologies, you'll be able to age regress anyway, back to an earlier state. But I wouldn't want someone to use that as an excuse for living a very carefree, careless life. I think ultimately we function a lot better when we're living in a healthy manner. I mean, your mind, your body, your level of thinking, everything is more in alignment when you're living in a healthy manner.
Do you smoke or drink?
I don't smoke, except the only thing that I enjoy smoking is glycerin, liquid glycerin, which is out of these e-cigarettes. But the e-cigarettes, this glycerin is, it's an air freshener. It has they have different aromas. And so if you smoke it indoors, it smells like that aroma. And, and then it dissipates. It doesn't stay because it's glycerin, which is completely harmless. And I don't inhale either, because some people say, well, if you're inhaling, whatever you're inhaling can be tough on the lungs, which may be true. So, but it's not meant to be inhaled. It's enjoyable experience. And here's the interesting thing is that nicotine has a bad reputation because the cigarette companies, the reason nicotine's so addictive is not because of the nicotine, it's because of the poisons that are in cigarettes. Therefore, people have a real tough time giving up cigarettes. And that's also why nicotine patches don't really work, because it's not the nicotine that's the real problem. It's a poison. So if people are getting fed nicotine on a constant basis, they're still going to have an urge. It seems from people I know who've tried to quit, they still have an urge to go back to cigarettes. And cigarettes are they are serious poison. Anyway, that's the nicotine. Ben Greenfield, he's an excellent podcaster. He does deep dives into all this stuff, and he was the first one to raise awareness to me anyway that nicotine is a neuroenhancer. Caffeine is not a neuroenhancer, but nicotine is in small doses. So he actually uses Nicorette gum. I actually started doping my glycerin with bits of nicotine. So if I smoke it, then I'm getting the effects from the nicotine. It's very mild, but it's nevertheless a neuroenhancer, non-addictive completely. I've been doing it long enough that I know that if I stop doing it, there's absolutely none of this urge or anything or craving, zero. So I'm getting the benefits of nicotine as a consequence of smoking from time to time out of these e-cigarettes, and they're fun. So
I like to smoke sometimes at parties. I don't know, like breathing out the smoke, is it weed or whatever it is, like a tobacco, or I don't know. I just like the momentum of it. I don't know.
I know what you mean. Yeah,
it's a good way to use your time if you don't have anything else to do. Just smoke it away.
It's psychological, and I get. Well, cigars are fun once in a while.
Yeah,
it's
that's
I think
my stuff.
that's a great vice if you're going to have a vice, because you never inhale the smoke, and the nicotine is it's pure. The tobacco is pure. There's no poisons in it. So you don't see people addicted to cigars. They could be psychologically. That's a different discussion altogether. I mean, we can get addicted to anything psychologically, but physically, it doesn't happen with cigars. Only with cigarettes you get this create real serious physical addiction on cigarettes.
You mean psychologically, like look at me, I have a big cigar,
Yeah,
like,
something like that. But that's mild. That's same. You could also say some people are addicted to fashion, and nothing wrong with that. As long as it doesn't interfere with the rest of their life. Obviously there's people who get addicted to gambling, you name it. There's so many addictions out there, but the physical addiction part is really not there with cigars. Not it tends to be there certainly with some drugs and with cigarettes. Cigarettes, the poisons in there are just it's a bit insidious that they're designed that way, because then it keeps people buying the cigarettes.
Yeah, I have been like a chain smoker. I quit. I started again, then quit again, then started again with cigars, small ones. I got kinda hooked on them, but I was like, when it got before it got out of control, when I started to feel bad, I was like, no, I need to stop. And slowly now I'm still free from it.
Good.
But sometimes I just like have few beers. I'm like, fuck, I want a cigar, and then I buy a cigar, and that's the last pack for a month, 2, 3.
See, that is a great transition, because cigars, because you're not inhaling the smoke, they're a lot healthier alternative to cigarettes. And so if someone is trying to quit cigarettes, cigars are a good gateway to slowing the whole thing down.
Well, I tried. I started smoking when I was 9. Like small, just stealing from my mother and my stepfather. But it got out of control like 12, when I had like a cigarette pack all the time with me. And I don't know, like I was 20 something when I started quitting. First, I started quitting with e-cigarettes. Then in military, I quit with those nicotine pouches. But somehow this, still to this day, when I smell the cigarette smell, like if you haven't smoked or you just came out, it's disgusting. But when time passes, oh my God, this smell is so good. Like, give me that cigarette, I want to smoke it. That smell is something like you're close to. You've been smoking so long, you're like kind of miss that. Like nostalgia.
It's a trigger.
Yeah,
and that's very difficult to uproot that trigger, especially if you start very early. It's really deeply planted in the brain. So yeah, when you smell that familiar smell, then it induces this craving. And if you can get away by smoking cigars, you're better off because you're not inhaling and you're also not smoking poisons. If that works as a substitute, great, because I think that's a good substitute. At least it doesn't compromise your health as much. You know, ultimately, if you're chain smoking, people don't really chain smoke cigars. That's the thing. I just don't see it or hear about it. It's almost like, you know, if I smoke a cigar, it used to be like once every 6 to 12 months, I smoke a small cigar with some friends. Love the effects of the nicotine. Didn't realize nicotine was a neuroenhancer at the time. So, you know, but yeah, there's no downside really to doing that. If you're smoking anything that is tobacco related, you're just smoking too much of it, then you're consuming a lot of nicotine. And like, while it's a neuroenhancer, I did say in small doses, it's good. If you start increasing the amount, like if I were to start on my e-cigarette and just be smoking it all day, that's too much. That's too much nicotine. And nicotine in, I think, higher concentrations can be addictive. I mean, there's addictivity scales that say, oh, nicotine is so addictive and all this. I think it's mischaracterized. It is addictive if you do a lot of it. So keep to a smaller level and you will not cross that line. You won't have that problem. It's just like with caffeine. The rare times I've drank, say, 5 to 8 cups a day. When I started at O'Neill, I was drinking a lot of coffee. First time I ever did that because I wanted to really be on top form. And in the weekends when I didn't drink coffee, I feel really tired because I'm not drinking coffee. And that was my first introduction to, oh, this is a withdrawal symptom. So then what I realized was I can basically consume 250 milligrams of caffeine, which is about 3 cups of coffee max a day. No tolerance. I generate no tolerance and there's no withdrawal symptom. So I have not been addicted to coffee in ages, in years and years and years, because I know not to go over the 3 cup limit.
I feel like I have drank a lot at work as well. Sometimes I feel tired, but it's like you crash down, you need another coffee. You crash down, you need another coffee. And I felt like how the stress levels are going up as well because your heart is rising. And when you're in a stressful environment, like a warehouse where it's like forklifts, blah, 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 someone wants this, that, someone yells at you. And I felt like, man, like it's too much. And then I was like, man, what I'm drinking too much. Like this is not normal me. And then I cut off coffee. I was like, damn, that was the thing what stressed me out so much.
Yeah. There's biohacks that are good substitutes for caffeine, for coffee. Like I said, if I'm under 3 cups a day, then there's no issue. But there's a lot of things one can do. Lion's mane, that's a great natural stimulant. That's non-addictive. That's good for you. That's a neuroenhancer. And that certainly will elevate your energies. NMN, that's the David Sinclair substance that he is used to give to mice. He takes it himself. It's Mary Nancy. That's the initials to the compound. And that is a very powerful substance that I would suggest people do take on a daily basis. There have been the only issue, again, everything that I say, this is not advice because I'm not a doctor, medical doctor. Do your own due diligence. Everyone must always do their due diligence on everything. When you're looking at science.bio, they have disclaimers. They're not recommending you take this. They're just providing the platform that you can buy it, but you better do your own research. And so, any links that you provide the audience, they just need to know that no one's there to hold their hand. And the other issue is that everyone's brain is a little different. Everyone's a little different. And there is a chance that maybe 1 out of 1 million people or 1 out of 10,000 could have a bad reaction to some of these things. So everyone has to keep these things in mind, because if they're one of those unfortunate, unlucky types that have a bad reaction, to any of these things, then that it's generally recommended, like Ben Greenfield says, start with a very small dose and see how you react.
Yeah.
Because he's a guinea pig for a lot of the stuff he does, and I am too. But I mean, it would be unfortunate if someone who was a certain age and if it induced a heart attack. Some of these things that lion's mane is widely accepted and a wonderful substance. Caffeine is too, but caffeine can induce a heart attack. I mean, it can trigger these things. So you have to kind of be aware of yourself before you start using anything. It's just a buyer beware, user beware. And this is not just with substances. This is with trading, with recommendations. And when you see people recommending a stock or cryptocurrency, you got to do your own homework, because no one's there to make money for you. People might have a good tip, but there's a very famous tip that Jesse Livermore, the legendary trader from the many decades ago, he used to say, "My tip to you is don't take tips," and because you get in a lot of trouble trying to get something for free from other people. It just takes a lot of hard work and due diligence.
I follow a lot of people who are cracking down those people who just manipulate with others, rip off others with stocks, crypto, other ways with products, investments. There's a lot of those people out there. Like in 1 year, I just opened another door that about corruption, like in just little guys, not the big things, but small people just ripping off each other. It's pretty sad, or like you're stupid to invest in it without researching who is this guy, how legit is this guy, and just people go with the emotions.
Right.
The guy is so you this is one time opportunity, and I need to invest now, and for you I do not 500 100 and you have 40 minutes.
Right, time pressure
to
make the sale. And I mean, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is, almost always. So just be mindful. Don't let greed get the best of you when you're presented with a great offer. There's a lot of ways to Google for, if someone's making you, I've had friends come to me and say, is this legit? And I'll just Google keywords, and I can usually within a minute or two see if it is legit or not. Most of the time it's not legit, or there's a big question mark and there's no confirmation. Therefore, don't get involved. If it's that good, there will be some confirmation somewhere. Major publications would have talked about this offer or this idea or this trading strategy, whatever it is. It will have been discussed and reviewed, and then you can see for yourself, how effective it is, and then make your own decision. But if there's not much out there on it, then that's a big red flag.
One of the things as well, like how the cryptocurrency trading is going, that usually it's too late when you hear about this. Like when it's going up, usually it's too late when the public knows about it. So it's not, I have lost money from this, that, oh shit, it's going up. I put some money in, and 2 days later it crashes down. I'm like, God damn it.
The pump and dump.
Yeah, but I'm okay to kind of have that money there to just learn, and you learn from your mistakes. Like I'm not that smart to calculate everything, kind of going for like some hope or listening to this guy or you that, oh man, like what you think, oh I should, I put some money in, if it goes or comes. But if I have, maybe money that I can't spend, like I'm not gonna spend, like I'm better off like using it for my food podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell friends and whoever asks, I always say never invest money you can't afford to lose. So then you play from psychological strength, knowing that whatever you put into the market, whatever that is, whether it's stocks or cryptocurrencies, whatever it is you're investing in, knowing that it's most likely not going to go to zero, but if it did, and if you're okay with that, then you don't freak out when the things like Bitcoin and when Bitcoin corrects, 50%, the altcoins are correcting 80 to 90%. So if you're in, a lot of those smaller coins, you're going to get pushed out because no one wants to sit on a 90% correction, because you'd have to have a tenfold move to break even then. I mean, you've fallen so much. Something like Bitcoin is very resilient. So like with my parents, I suggested that they split 50-50 in Bitcoin and Ethereum and leave it alone. They don't have to watch it. They certainly shouldn't trade it. They should just sit, because these are the two leading coins. And certainly Bitcoin is nothing's appreciated like Bitcoin ever in the history of speculation. I mean, $1 in Bitcoin in 2010, a year after it was created. So if we're taking average 2010 price was 0.007 cents. So if you do the math, one Bitcoin if you bought $1 worth of Bitcoin in 2010, taking the average price, you'd be worth about $60-70 million today. It's insane. And there's no sign that the ride is over. I mean, all the metrics are showing that as all these central banks print money and fiat gets debased, and institutions and high net worth guys start to buy Bitcoin and more Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin ETFs are being launched. The Ethereum ETFs are being launched. PayPal is allowing transactions of Bitcoin. We have El Salvador, and then now a whole slew of countries who are all considering making a Bitcoin legal tender. These are huge tailwinds for Bitcoin that will propel the price much, much higher than where it currently is. I gave a keynote. I was to give this keynote in one of my slides in 2017 in Geneva at the Wealth Tech conference, and the mayor attended, and CEOs from major banks like UBS and Saxo Bank were there. And one of the slides, I show $1 million a Bitcoin by the end of 2023. And that's based on metrics, based on the price movement and trajectory. And that prediction of mine still stands. I still think it's achievable that we will get there by the end of 2023. But that won't be the end. It's not like Bitcoin hits 1 million and then it's all over. I mean, it'll eventually, from everything that the way the world is moving, it'll get into the high millions, 10 million.
What do you think about Bitcoin is really expensive for a regular person. They don't have that 30,000 to they maybe invest 1,000, but they get 0.000 point. It's not
it's good out to 8 decimal places, so you can buy a very small amount if you want.
Yeah. But what you think about Dogecoin or something like those coins? What are more available for regular people? Aren't they better for the day-to-day transactions between people or companies? Or
well, Dogecoin, when it was launched, and in 2016, it had developed an amazing track record of charitable giving. Most charities, 95% of what's given go into the structure and the company and the employees that are working there. Only 5% makes it to the intended recipients, the victims, whoever they are. Dogecoin did the opposite. Dogecoin, 95% make it to the people in need. And this was carried out partly by a very good friend of mine that sadly is no longer around. But he was a huge Dogecoin proponent, and he was a huge intellect. And so what I didn't understand is somehow this amazing revolutionary form of giving, which turns normal philanthropy on its head, it stopped. It came to a stop in Dogecoin shortly after 2016, even though they had this phenomenal track record of all these different, if it was a hurricane disaster relief or students trying to get a scholarship or just the homeless, whatever the problem was, they were able to create these forms of giving, and an average of 95% would make it to the victims. And this all stopped, I think, somewhere in late 2017. It seemed to fizzle out. And I never understood why. I still don't to this day. Maybe someone out there can shed some light on this. Because it's kind of strange. When something works so well, why would it stop? And Anyway, yeah, no, Dogecoin today
Corruption.
is become this meme, and the price on it has gone up like 2,000 fold from like a few months ago. So there's been a lot of overnight millionaires created. And the thing about Dogecoin at this point is that if there's like some serious tech development that goes on in it, because it has a network effect, which is worth a lot. The network effect is the most difficult thing to achieve. That's what Bitcoin's achieved, far and above all the other coins. But if it can utilize some great tech, introduce some great tech into the coin, then I think it stands a chance of holding its value because it possesses this very great network effect. I don't yet see that happening for Dogecoin right now. It just seems more like it's just a lot of froth, and it's part of this this bubble that we're in. You know, every Bitcoin bull market is a bubble. So this bubble has popped numerous times over the last decade. And the difference, though, with Bitcoin and all the other bubbles is when those bubbles pop, it's over. Most all the time, whether it's the South Sea bubble or the Dutch tulip craze. I mean, you've got all these bubbles in history, and once they pop, that's it. It's over. Done. The exception, actually, there's one exception, and that would be the .com bubble that burst March 2000. Everything got killed over the next 3 years. Most of these companies went out of business, but of course the internet survived. There was no question about that. And the hardiest companies like Amazon and eBay were the ones that issued buy signals in early 2003, and they continued to go on and on. I mean, Amazon today is one of the most successful companies in the world. Well, eBay too, arguably, but Amazon is the juggernaut. And that's it's wonderful to see that these technologies persist because they have so much great utility. So that was the one exception, that bubble endured and carried on. And I mean, well, it didn't come into, now we have another bubble of sorts that's QE induced, quantitative easing induced. So all this money printing is creating an artificial bubble of inflated prices in stocks, in everything that has value, everything physical, hard assets. They are inflated in value because, the euro, the dollar, the pound, they have less buying power, just simply because there's so much of it. And there's a lot more coming with Joseph Biden has, all these stimulus packages on the way. So the QE effect is a very pronounced effect. With Bitcoin, though, that it is the only technology that's had a bubble burst several times. And it has lost 94% twice in its price history. Yet here we are at Bitcoin, tens of thousands of dollars. It always comes back. It always comes back and hits new highs. And there is no sign that this run is over. I don't anticipate it to be over ever because, and I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist. The maximalists are all about, well, Bitcoin's going to be the only coin and all the other coins are junk. No, I think Ethereum can coexist with Bitcoin. We have USDC, USDT, the stable coins. They certainly serve a valuable purpose.
There was just a case with USD or what's the Tether coin?
Tether, yeah.
Yeah, Tether. That they're just printing out that's like billion Tether coins. They just out of nowhere, just into the market, and it's a stable coin. So you just printed $1 billion from nowhere. So it's
they're being examined. Well, what happened was the New York, I think it's the New York Attorney General. They basically were under investigation, and then they essentially got a slap on the wrist, saying, okay, they can now account for everything going back to 2018. And going forward, the agreement is that they need to account for everything that they create, all the tether that they create, and it must be accounted for. And so they had their first review just recently, and everything was fine. And I expect that they're going to honor this. So I think Tether should be okay going forward. It was a big win for the crypto space because it could have been much worse for Tether. But the U.S. Governing bodies, they don't want to upset the crypto market to the point where they're going to cripple it. Because if they do that, then they're going to get left behind because other countries are embracing this technology, and the U.S. has enough smart people that want to keep this alive. And now it's become more political because we have institutions on board, and we have companies. Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy was the first to buy Bitcoin in quantity. And now we have a ton of other companies that have also been selling their fiat, which is, sitting there doing nothing, and eventually it's going to be at a negative rate of interest. And meanwhile, Bitcoin keeps overall over the cycles, it goes higher and higher and higher. So it's a great move, I think, for companies to do that with their balance sheets. They have to be mindful, of course, by accounting standards. They have to adhere to the rules when it comes to things like cryptocurrencies. But a guy like Michael Saylor, all it takes is some legal accounting moves to basically like the amount of money he generated from early Bitcoin investments. That money is profit, so he can then take that profit and reinvest it in Bitcoin. There's no risk there, because if it goes to zero, he doesn't lose from basically he's mindful that he's creating these different buckets that are all investment buckets in Bitcoin. And I don't think it's going to be long before he starts investing in Ethereum, because he's just said, I think several hours ago, he gave a nice analogy that Bitcoin is like the concrete granite base. Everything's, that's your solid, most networked coin in the world. And then you've got the stable coins that are like the money markets, like USDT, Tether, and USDC. And they coexist naturally. And then you got Ethereum, which is, that is like seeking to dematerialize Wall Street, dematerialize a lot of these institutions that are going to be made redundant by technologies that are being built on Ethereum.
But Elon Musk said something that he doesn't accept Bitcoin for Teslas. And there's like, if famous people say too many things bad about Bitcoin, it can crumble. Like it is affected by social standards of the world, like what the billionaires say, what the masses are thinking. Yes, I understand it. The bubble bursts, it goes down, it comes up again, but it isn't stable. Like if one guy says something and it goes down, and it's a risk, kind of. Or
Bitcoin's had that headwind since the very beginning, and that's why it's had 94% corrections, and it's had numerous corrections beyond 80%, 80, 90%. And it's because the media will pile on. Maybe it's some guy of note that is saying something negative about Bitcoin, and the media piles on. In some cases, it's the actual company like JP Morgan that could actually pay reporters to publish a piece that's very negative about Bitcoin. And why are they wanting to do this? Because whales like to buy cheaper. So if they get the price down artificially, they can go in and scoop. And you see this activity on the blockchain, exactly what's going on. You see the whale activity based on the wallet size, and you will actually see that as Bitcoin goes, when it has this knee-jerk reaction down, there's a ton of whales that come in and buy much cheaper than where it was. So this is a common practice. This has been around since SEC or no SEC, before SEC and after SEC. This kind of manipulation is just a common tactic in the business. I don't want to single out JP Morgan. It's everybody's doing this. It's just a method. It's a strategy, and they're not breaking any rules. I mean, it's all within SEC guidelines, but people should be aware that, this is the chart reading is very good because it keeps you out of trouble. When prices are starting to get weak, depending on your risk tolerance, especially with stocks, it's a good idea to have your sell stops and sell at your sell stops, and then you can always rebuy. You can always get back in. With Bitcoin, it's a little bit of a different animal. There is, because it's moved up so far in such a short amount of time, and it has so much volatility. The dollar cost averaging technique is very good. I mean, obviously, people who did that are worth a lot more than when they started. When Bitcoin in 2013 went up to about 1,150. And then it corrected by January 2015. So we're talking only 14 months later, it went all the way down to 150. So that's like a 90% loss, almost a 90% loss, 87% loss there in that bear market. And anyone who dollar cost averages all the way down and then all the way back up, they're doing great. Their average cost is so cheap compared to where it is today. You can still do that today. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, putting a certain percentage of money you can afford to lose from your paycheck into Bitcoin every month. It's a great strategy. And Bitcoin is the coin that's the most solid in terms of its price reaction. So when we have a bear market, when Bitcoin does correct 87%, well, let's say in this last bear market, Bitcoin corrected 85%, and this is from the peak in December 2017 to the trough in December 2018. So we're talking 1 year. That was the extent of that bear from peak to trough, and 85% was lost. But Ethereum lost, I think, 95%, and altcoins lost even more than that. So, and that's a big difference. 85 to 95%. That's not a 10% difference. It's a lot bigger than that. If you think of it as if you're down 90%, if you're down 95%, you need a 2,000% gain to break even from 95% loss. If you're down 50%, you only need 100% gain to break even. Massive difference between 50% down, 90% down. So, and 85%, you can do the math, and you don't need you need basically about a 680% gain to break even. And that's what Bitcoin did. I mean, ultimately it went from 150 way back when it eventually, superseded 1100, 1200. And then this go around, the peak was at around just under 20,000. And then Bitcoin topped that last year, went past 20,000. And then we went all the way up to, I think, 65,000 or something. And now we're in the middle of a steep correction where it's lost 60% at its worst levels, and now I think we're hovering right around 40,000 or 39, something like that.
What you think that would people should buy in right now, or to wait, or?
Depends on your buying strategy. I mean, if you're a dollar cost averager, then yes, then you're buying every interval, every week, every month, whatever you set yourself. If you're trying to time the market, it's different ways to handle it. Depends on your style. Again, if you look at the charts, because there's so much damage done to the technical patterns, what generally happens is Bitcoin will come back up eventually to its old highs. It did this in March 2020 when everything collapsed, and there was a V bottom, and then Bitcoin slowly but surely made its way back. It collapsed down all the way down to like 3,800, 4,000 in March 2020, and then it came back to the where it started to correct. It came back to that, and then it kind of settled in and based. And you can actually see on the charts entry points. Of course, if you're buying up there, you're going to pay a lot more than if you're dollar cost averaging when Bitcoin's correcting and off as much as it is. So I personally. I'm seeing enough positive metrics right now that I have a good exposure to Bitcoin and Ethereum, but I'm also careful. I'm not in other altcoins right now that I favor. I think they're going to beat Bitcoin and even Ethereum when we really start uptrending again. So I'm going to eventually be moving money into those favored coins. But right now I'm a little more conservative. I think that Bitcoin certainly could retest lows. Even though I'm exposed to it, I don't mind if that happens. It could even go below 30,000. That's a significant low. It could go down to 25, 24. That's fine. My risk tolerance allows that. I'm not going to get shaken out if that happens. I know the price history of Bitcoin, and I'm comfortable with that. But if a person is very conservative, then they need to be careful and mindful that maybe they shouldn't even be investing in Bitcoin at all, and they certainly should not invest money that is something that they cannot. They have to be able to afford to lose that money that they're investing, because there's always the possibility of some crazy black swan events that could take the price of all this stuff down a whole lot lower than 20,000, 10,000. So that's why I told my parents, if you don't mind this all goes to zero, that's what you should invest, whatever you can afford to lose in its entirety. Now, I think the odds of that are virtually zero. And the reason is because of the way Bitcoin is created. And essentially, it's the internet's DNA. So you'd have to blow up the world and get rid of the internet to destroy Bitcoin, which is, if that happened, then we have a lot more problems on our hands than worrying about Bitcoin.
That's they're trying to centralize this. That the Bitcoin is still decentralized.
Yeah,
and,
they're not going to. It can't be centralized. It's the only thing that can't really be centralized. Well, it's kind of like the internet in many ways can't be centralized either. I mean, the Chinese have tried to stop the use of YouTube and sites, but people in China use VPNs.
They're too smart.
They can always go around whatever the government tries to block. There's always a way around it. And that's always been the case. And certainly with Bitcoin, there was this, the Elon Musk talk about it. He's mistaken. It's the amount of energy it uses. No one talks about the amount of energy it takes to put up Christmas lights and during the holiday season. That's a lot more than the cost for Bitcoin mining. I mean, gold mining is a lot more than Bitcoin mining. And no one talks about that issue. There's a lot, like just the broadcasting, the amount of energy it takes for a commentator to talk negatively about Bitcoin's energy use. That alone, with all the people receiving it on their devices, this broadcast, that alone right there is a massive amount of energy that is far greater than Bitcoin mining. So
really, I'm kind of skeptical about this.
I can send you some hard numbers on the actual energy use of Bitcoin over any span of time versus all these other forms of energy use. I mean, legacy banking, that takes a massive amount. That's crazy amount of energy, of course. But all these other forms, I mean, gold mining is about, I'd say, that's about close to twice the amount of energy that it takes to mine Bitcoin. So, and these are based on actual numbers, actual data, raw data. And Michael Saylor has actually done a lot of deep digging into coming up with these values because they're all reported. You have to be able to keep track of all the energy consumed. So this is all on record. And so a table was compiled and it showed that Bitcoin mining was pretty much at the bottom of the list. But the problem is Bitcoin's political. There's a lot of governments that don't like Bitcoin and bodies like the IMF. They don't, and the Basel Committee on Banking, they don't like Bitcoin because it is decentralized and they can't control it. And it's taking, the Chinese hate it because it takes the power away. A lot of wealthy Chinese are moving money outside of the country well beyond the $50,000 maximum through Tether and Bitcoin. And there's nothing the government can do. They're hopeless about this. So ultimately, they have a love-hate relationship. Like the Chinese have banned aspects of Bitcoin before, but they still allow certain things to take place because they do realize if they try to crush the technology, they're going to get left behind. Blockchain is very powerful, and they can try to do their own things like their own digital currency. But a country's own digital currency is no better than fiat because they can always print more of it. So it defeats the purpose of having something like Bitcoin, which is a fixed supply. In fact, Bitcoin is disinflationary. In other words, there's less and less of it being created as time goes on. Ethereum is going to be deflationary, which is huge as it goes to Ethereum 2.0, which is going to happen sometime next year. So in other words, Ethereums will get destroyed. So there's going to be less and less of it out there. So it's going to further drive up the price and the attractiveness because Ethereum has the monopoly on NFTs, that's non-fungible tokens, and also on the DeFi universe. And it's got the first mover advantage, certainly. So, I mean, if someone says, 5 years out, what are we going to look at? Well, a ton of stuff happens in 5 years. It's hard to predict. Lots of things can happen. But first, I would say, if I had to invest in one coin, of course, it would be Bitcoin. That's going to be around in 5 years. Even if governments like Basel and IMF and all these try to gang tackle Bitcoin. I mean, if the U.S. were to pull what I call the FDR move, where in 1933 he made it illegal for U.S. citizens to own gold. They all had to turn in their gold. So if the U.S. government tried that, well, Bitcoin's designed to go underground. It's just going to go huge underground, like prohibition, alcohol in the 30s. There was a lot of sales. It didn't stop people from drinking, and a lot of sales were made in alcohol, certainly in the 30s, because governments cannot stop something that people
Same with drugs. Like you can't stop this. You're creating a war. What wasn't worthy of a war? Kinda like how much discoveries we would have if it didn't like make those substances illegal. I think it's a lost war and drugs won. I think if they go at war with cryptocurrencies, with Bitcoin, they're going to lose this one as well, because people kind of like to do what they do, and they don't want to have that big brother still there, till the end.
Right. I mean, I will say that I think a very important component of all this is regulation, but appropriate regulation. And we're seeing, everything I can see is that everything done right now around the world, like in the major areas, is done in a measured way. Right now we launched a company, TriQuantum Technologies, and under that is subsets. We are digitizing securities. We are enabling people who've been cash starved for projects. If they need anywhere from 5 million all the way up to 150 million. They've had a tough time raising the funds because of certain regulations that have come through that dried up the funding. And I'm not talking about here, I'm talking about other countries. So what blockchain technology does, and what we're focused on, we're the first to do this when we launched in 2018, is to enable these companies to be able to raise capital so they can get these projects built and done. And so we're fueling the whole construction movement in a big way. There's a lot of new cities or cities that are being basically revamped completely with these projects. So it's great to see this technology being used. The advantage of blockchain is that it creates so much efficiency at lower costs, so we can pass the savings on to investors. Investors are very attracted by the higher yields, especially in a world where there's basically 0% yields, or even negative in some cases. So these are very low risk investments. Obviously, everyone has to do their due diligence. We don't take a project on board unless we've done our due diligence, because then the banks would reject it, because ultimately the banks sell this to their clients, and their clients are very conservative, and we're very conservative. So we are very, very, very rigorous in our analysis and what we take on board. And basically, we're doing something that's really boring but very fundamental to growth in terms of the building things, and physical properties, whether it's residential or commercial. And that's one aspect of what we're doing. There's also a fund that we're going to be launching, an investment fund. I'm going to be the portfolio manager. I'll be able to talk about that at a later date, but we're going through regulation right now. And everything has been, what I love about this country is that the reason we actually launched here is because we could easily see that the regulations are fair and fast, they're efficient, and you can actually meet with head regulators and get answers. Try doing that in other countries. Very difficult. I think Estonia is one of the most efficient places for this kind of activity, and which is why legitimate companies have set up here, and then they grow. And Estonia has one of the fastest GDP growth rates, I think, out of all the EU countries, just because the government's very sound and rational. So it attracts good minds. It attracts new ideas. I wish more of the world was like this.
Are you e-citizens of in Estonia?
I'm a resident. I'm yes.
Right.
I got the 5-year residency, but now I own property, so now I will be able to renew this without issue. And then, of course,
okay.
Our company is growing nicely, and we've attracted a lot of top minds onto the supervisory board because they can see what we're doing is very significant. And so we're very pleased with everything so far, and we hope to be regulated within the next couple months. Then I can speak more things. Again, we are such sticklers. The other co-founder is Frisian. He's German, so just like a Porsche or a Mercedes is built so perfectly, we are always wedded to being compliant every step of the way. No gray areas. So there's nothing that anyone can question of what we're doing. And that gives us a huge advantage, especially when so many companies are being sloppy about this, or they don't take it seriously. I think regulations it brings law and order into a space that lacks it. So this law and order will create the growth that the space will experience in the years ahead, because once institutions can then be really comfortable with with the regulations and where they sit, then they have clarity. Then they know how much they can invest. Right now there's just a lot of institutions are buying Bitcoin. That's okay, but institutions certainly are not going to be stepping in and buying altcoins yet, even though the technologies are pretty fascinating and some of them have great utility today. And this is the first time we're seeing this. It's not like 2017 when everything was going up straight like a rocket, but very little utility back then. It kind of reminded me of the dot-com boom in the late 90s, where a lot of business models were just defective and most of those companies went bankrupt. And I think, well, in 2017, many of those companies that went sky high, today they never came back. If someone is still sitting in those coins, they're probably still sitting on 90% or greater losses from wherever they bought. And of course, some of these coins go out of commission. They just go to zero. So in this bull market we're sitting in, we have a lot more legitimate utility, which is, again, it's amazing for me to see this play out this way because it's happening so fast. And that utility is going to be transformational to a lot of the old ways of doing things. Legacy banking is very inefficient. So the DeFi aspect is going to be a big push but a regulated form of all of these aspects, I think will help the space grow very quickly. And, it already is growing at breakneck speeds. So
I understand from the passion and the love what you're experiencing, researching this and kind of helping to grow this cryptocurrency era, and that I see why you choose another way, that you had everything from the a PhD in physics, and that there's something here that you can put even more on the table. That it feels like this.
Yeah, I think it's cumulative. All our experiences help us create bigger and better, hopefully. That's the intention. And certainly something like blockchain is so transformational. I mean, arguably even more transformational than the internet, simply because we're going to have offshoots from blockchain technology, especially when you integrate it with AI. It's pretty mind-blowing what the future holds. You can make guesses, but it's probably going to, what happens in the future is probably going to be even beyond, those expectations.
Are you going to kind of, worried about the AI, that its capabilities can get the overhand?
Right, the Terminator effect. I've had discussions with my friend who was a big force behind Dogecoin, the one who's no longer with us, sadly. We used to have these friendly debates, and he was very concerned that AI is going to cancel out humanity. And I always take the other view because I've not been proven wrong yet, and that is that whatever is created, there's always a safeguard. There's always something that can block what's created. And whatever you create, if it's like with software protection, you create software protection, it can always be broken. But then new higher levels of software protection are created. But then those can be broken. And there's nothing that hasn't been able to be broken. There's always more powerful computers. Even this quantum computer talk, there's always going to be something even more powerful than that will be able to control whatever quantum computing delivers. It's just this endless spiral higher and higher and higher.
But in one moment, the humans have done it I done it better. And if AI does it, I done it better. Who are we to control anyways? There's comes a point you're hunting with a bow and arrow, and then comes a guy, I have a machine gun.
Right.
Fuck you,
right.
You're obsolete.
Right. Now the difference is that, and Kurzweil makes this point very eloquently. What is likely to happen, and we're already starting to see this happen today, is as AI gets more and more powerful and sophisticated, we are the creators behind it. We are also going to become more and more cybernetic. in time. And Kurzweil's talked about this in depth. Like within the next 40 years, we're already there's
We're
implants.
already cyber humans by
this normally glows
phones.
when it's on. This is a magnetic device, so it sends waves to my brain and induces different states. It can induce sleepiness if you're going to bed. You want to go to bed earlier. If you want to have a good sleep, it induces melatonin secretion. In the morning, it induces the equivalent of caffeine when you wake up. It induces focus. It replicates all these different substances without actually having to take them. And this is the technology that used to only be discussed in private. It was not available to the consumer until recently. And I looked at the research papers because a lot of this technology obviously was published in respectable journals. So you go to the source, you don't go to the internet and look at, some website because that's probably commercially tainted, but you go to the original source and I love looking at journal articles, and I know that makes me a little weird, but that's my background. And I feel comfortable looking at all the data tables and knowing, okay, who's involved in this, quality of research, university, all these things. And you look at enough of these, on this device alone, there's quite a few research articles. So you start looking at this and you go, okay, I get it. This is why it works. This is legit. And then Ben Greenfield actually popularized it on his show because he did a deep dive into it, and he uses one himself. And it's great because I told my parents to get themselves, get one each. This is the device is not very expensive. I mean, it's really shocking how
much.
I think it's like $150, and it's really nice and durable, and you can wear it under your shirt or over your shirt. This light actually glows, pulses when it's on.
How much battery time?
That's really nice, actually. You can have this on. Actually, it is still on right now. But I can turn the light on. The battery time, it will go for about 16 to 20 hours before it needs a recharge. Mm-hmm. And during the day, I don't have it on all the time. I usually have it, I want 2 hours of focus, so I turn the focus on. And then I go like a few hours later, hang out with some friends, so I turn the...
How you feel it? Like?
You feel subtle. It's definitely there.
It's like with Lion's Mane.
Yes.
At least I'm drinking right now this, and I feel like more focused and more like energized.
It's a good analogy, actually. Yeah. You're going to feel Lion's Mane isn't like massive, but you can feel it's in the background. And this is like that. I think it's most clearly like I don't like to go to bed early. I tend to go to bed later and later. Mm-hmm. So what this does is if I need to be up early the next day, this allows me to go to sleep earlier than I normally would. I mean, literally start to feel tired ahead of time by turning on it's like a pre-sleep module. See, here's the here are some of the programs.
Calm, focus, happy, relax, deep sleep, bedtime.
Yeah. So I do the bedtime one an hour before bed, and this is only if I'm if I'm going to bed at a normal time, I don't need this. I always just go to sleep. I don't have a problem with that. But this allows me to feel tired early, and I can feel it. And someone obviously Ben Greenfield, his first question is it placebo effect? Because that can be very powerful. And he found that it's not placebo effect because if you look at the journal articles, there's a scientific reason behind the EMF technology that is being sent to your brain. And it's kind of equivalent to if you have headphones on and you're listening to binaural beat frequencies, you can change your brain state from alpha state, like Bach music is notoriously alpha state. So when I need serious focus, like before I had this device, like years ago, whenever I was writing something, and I write a lot, I publish all the time, I turn Bach on. I turn his partitas and his fugues, everything that's Bach. I just allows me to really hone in. And actually my own music, one of the greatest compliments was that there was a review on my music and they said it's naturally alpha state. It's like, oh, that's it. When I compose, I'm not aiming for anything except emotional reach. If I can make myself feel a certain way at the keyboard from what I'm creating, then I've done my job. And more importantly, I need to be able to play that song over and over again without my ear getting tired of it. So over the years, I've composed loads and loads of things, but out of all the things I've composed, there's about 70, 75, 80 tracks that my ear doesn't get tired of, that I can play again and again. And I just gave a performance at Winkle, and I just selected some of the songs. 2 of my songs have charted, and so I played those. I played some of the other ones that have been used in documentaries, and one was used in a video game. And some of these are, I just know they're crowd pleasers. I mean, I like them, so I'm playing them for me, but I know that in the past reactions, when I would play at the Dover private arts club in London, it would get a certain, favorable reaction. Certain songs are clear like winners when it comes to triggering the audience. And there was one song, it's called Teardrop Rain, after my first album. And I played that in a friend's garage. We were at this house party, and there's quite a few musicians there, and they have an old Rhodes piano there and other instruments. And so I played my song Teardrop Rain, and a couple people came up to me afterwards and said, "Your music made me cry, your song." I said, that's the highest compliment if someone says that. I know this song has a certain quality to it, and I've gotten that over and over again throughout the years. That one, and I would say my other song called Feel, that one I've seen actually people, well, my friend Jacques, he was at my house and I started playing it, and before I knew it, he's on the couch and he was like this, and he was like, it just triggered something in him. He's just like, not just one tear, but like quite a bit. So I love that reaction.
I'm sad that I couldn't make it at that Friday in Winkle.
Next one.
Yeah, for sure. I really like. I see that how much deepness and like something with you is different. Like, and one question, like, who were you like 7 or 5? You composed your own song
at 5.
Like, who is this kid? Like.
Well, my dad said it's DNA. It's all in the DNA because, long line of composers is in my family line on my dad's side. And when I was 3, we had a Steinway Grand at our house, and I started playing around on it because I wanted to. No one said to, but I did. And so my parents were so pleased by this turn that they put me on formal lessons at the age of 4. And I took to the piano really well, and this institute would fly. They would typically choose 3 students, or maybe sometimes more, depending on the situation. And they would fly them somewhere in the U.S. to perform. And I was always chosen during these periods. So from age 5 to age 12, I was a concert pianist for Suzuki Institute. And I also performed in Japan as well, because that's where they originate. And I'm half Japanese, actually, so that was nice to be able to see relatives over there.
Holy shit. You said it. I was like, damn. Like, yeah, it's something in you right away clicked. Yeah. Just the eyes or something. Yeah. Okay, yeah, really interesting facts.
Yeah, it's nice because a lot of people see me as just being, this white guy,
American white guy.
But then some people are like, no, there's something exotic going on. I can't put my finger on it, And then my mom actually, she has unusual eyes. They're manga character eyes, very big eyes, in the cartoons that they make there. She was a model in her earlier years, and she doesn't have traditional Asian eyes at all. They're just very big. And then actually she became a top-grossing broker for Merrill Lynch later on, because she just had a knack for investments. And so I grew up in that environment, surrounded by Wall Street Journal and Barron's and all these publications, and hearing her talk about whatever it was, topic of the day, whether it was the recession that's looming, whatever it was. I was 9, 10, 11 years old hearing this, not understanding it, but I think it sinks in. And so at age 11, I started cutting out precious metal prices from the Wall Street Journal and pasting them and tracking the prices, because I was interested in what makes things move in price. And in this case, it was gold, platinum, and silver. Actually, prior to that, again, this is a DNA thing. So the music was from my dad, but the investment side was clearly from my mom's side of the family. We have quite a few moguls that sit in Japan. One of our relatives started Minolta, the camera company, the world famous one. We have had my mother's father, my grandfather, he owned a number of companies in Japan way back in the day. And so at age 6, 7, yeah, 6, I think, yeah, when we moved in, I started collecting stamps, but not because of why little kids collect stamps. I noticed that there was certain stamps would go up in value quite fast because I started tracking the price. You can look at all the Scott catalogs and you go back the years, and I had stacks of these in my room, and I was actually tracking the price. And so I started saving my allowance and going to the post office where you get stamps at face value, so you can resell them at pretty much face value. So there's very little risk. But certain stamps go up in value a lot more than others. And there was like this bicentennial sheet of 50 flags, and I think the value of that was like it was $6.50 face value. But in no time did this stamp sell out, and all the dealers were selling the same sheet for about $27. So that's a 4.5-fold gain. I mean, yeah, 4x. I mean, amazing. In such a short time. And there were certain stamps, I had a knack for figuring out, okay, which stamps are more likely to go up in value. And then I just use all my allowance money and buy those stamps. And then at the stamp shows, you could then resell them and make money. And then you could just keep parlaying the capital. So I had this taste for price movements from a very early age. And the stamp collecting thing was strong. I mean, I built up quite a collection actually for someone that young with tiny allowance. I mean, we were living in a nice house, but my parents were very stingy about giving me much money. They were like, no, we're going to give you it was ridiculously
You're a 9-year-old.
What tiny money. Yeah. I mean, my friends were getting more money than I was. And I felt poor, but in a way it was good because I had to figure out for myself how to make money, as opposed to just being given it. So that I think launched, in a way that was planted the seed for my trading career many years later, in terms of risk reward and how I see money, how I view wins and losses, all these things that go into my trading personality.
But how you now went to physics? Why that interested you?
Sure. That's a good question. Now, when I was finishing high school and I got into Berkeley, I started actually as a chemical engineer major. And the reason I chose a science was because I was really good at science and math in high school. So, I took AP courses, all that, and it came naturally to me. So to me, I was like, well, I don't know what I'm really interested in. I hadn't figured out my passion yet. So chemical engineering I did that for a year and then quit and switched into something far more flexible. The engineering's at Berkeley. The issue there is you're basically given no room to pursue other studies. It's all science, math. It's just driven. Yeah. And so you don't get a well-rounded education. And I wanted a liberal arts education on top of the science education. So I switched into, by virtue of, which was not supposed to happen, but I went to the top guy, the dean of the school, and I said, I want to do a switch, and I know it's not normal protocol, but this is why, and I want to get a minor in English. I really I love the craft of writing. It's something that I've recently developed a passion for. So I need to have the space to take enough courses in English so I can get the minor in that. And then I wanted to explore other avenues, not just chemistry, physics, math, but physiology was interesting. So I did some undergraduate research work for Dr. Paolo Timoris, who was world-renowned researcher in Alzheimer's. And my grandmother had Alzheimer's. So it was kind of an interesting pursuit to study. At the time, the research project I was working on was, oddly enough, they call them NFTs in the brain, which stand for neurofibrillary tangles, NFTs. So they're plaques. They're plaques that build up in brains as a person ages. And if you get too many of these plaques, that induces a state of Alzheimer's or a state of senility.
The electro impulses doesn't go through, or
it creates, it's like they become, it's like basically imagine a highway where there's lots of accidents and the traffic can't move.
Okay.
And so that was fascinating, and I worked with an amazing grad student, and we produced a paper out of it. And I did that project for about 2 years as an undergrad. So that was a load of fun to be able to be part of something like that. And then from there, I switched into nuclear science because I had taken a course in it, and the professor was renowned in it, and the TA, the teaching assistant, and I got on so well. And he said, have you thought about, now that your physiology is wrapping up, have you thought about doing some undergrad nuclear science research? And I said, that sounds fascinating with particle accelerators. So they had me on board immediately, and I did some work that resulted in me getting what they call the Coriell Award. And they give one of those out each year, and you get flown to CNN in Atlanta, Georgia, in the States, to receive the award. So it's a big deal. You get also like $500 or something, and this is, of course, back then, we're talking $1989. And this was a really great coup for me in terms of the momentum that it carried, because Glenn Seaborg actually flew in to watch me receive this award. And when I was finishing up my degree at Berkeley as an undergrad, he stepped in and he said, Berkeley doesn't accept its own, but we want you to work with us as a graduate student in the nuclear science program. And so I had actually gotten accepted to Princeton, University of Chicago, Yale, a number of these top schools, and they all flew me out on their cost to meet all the professors. And I wanted to go to Princeton. I wanted a change of scenery. And I was so close to saying yes to Princeton until this nuclear physics professor there said to me, he said, I would love you to be in my group, but I have to tell you with good conscience that you have a lifetime opportunity to work with Dr. Glenn Seaborg, who is one of the greatest scientists that living today. And he said, I would feel guilty if I didn't strongly urge that you stay at Berkeley and work for this man as much as I want you to work for me. And I thought, that is an act. What an act, beautiful, beautiful advice. And that pushed me to stay. That one thing right there tilted the odds, and I decided to stay at Berkeley, which ended up, of course, being a great decision, because then we put two elements on the table, and all this great stuff happened. But yeah, ultimately, it wasn't my love, it wasn't my passion. And when I did the 180, that was it's like a load, the weight of the world that's on your shoulders, like the Atlas, statue. That's what it felt like. I felt like I was getting dragged, pushed into something I didn't want to make a career out of. And I almost felt a little suffocated, because, here's one of the great scientists, Glenn Seaborg, really pushing me to stay and rolling out the red carpet, and this intense feeling of guilt of, oh my gosh, you know what? I know I need to change. I know I need to. And I started knocking on the doors on Wall Street. Of course, William O'Neill wasn't on Wall Street, but he was my number one choice. And I started to fly out to Wall Street doing interviews. And when the turning point was when O'Neill gave me a job offer, then everything became so much clearer. And then I basically said, I'm going to do this, not that. And, Seaborg was, to say he was disappointed is an understatement. He's a man of great character and great strength, force. So, let's just say he didn't take nicely to my decision. However, the other professors, because you have different professors on your thesis committee, they were all understanding. Hoffman, Darlene Hoffman, who worked with Seaborg very closely, and she used to be the head of Los Alamos National Labs. She was a force all to her own, and she was an amazing human being, and she made my experience at Berkeley what it was. So she was nothing but for my decision, even though she too was she was very disappointed, but she was still saying, look, you got to do what you got to do. And if this is really what you want to do, then you have my blessing.
What was your position when you were working on those nuclear reactor, the particle
the accelerators? Yeah. No, I was a graduate student. I was working on my thesis in Element 104, but I was also doing these other projects because they were so you basically at Berkeley, the way it works in our group is that you don't just work on your thesis, you're helping along with the thought process on a lot of other projects. And certainly something like Element 106 and Element 110, those are top priorities because that's a big deal. And there were some other projects that I participated in as well. So what ends up happening is throughout the 5 years I was a grad student there, my name is on over 40 or 50 papers. I mean, it's a lot of papers, and that doesn't mean I'm writing each one. I mean, usually it's the first listed author is the one who writes the paper, but I'm contributing throughout, our interactions. On a lot of these shifts, they're 8-hour shifts, and then you're working with usually one or two other people on the project, and so you're discussing a lot of things that could refine the project or improve it, or are we doing this right? Or if you're not getting the data you need, what's wrong? What are we not doing right? So there's a lot of intellectual feedback that the lead scientist will get from graduate students and staff scientists.
Was it high security stuff what you did?
Well, high security in that we were using radioactivity. And therefore, naturally, to get into Lawrence Berkeley Labs, it's Lawrence Berkeley National Labs, changed its name. But to get in there, you always had to have your key card and everything. There's no way, it's max security, yeah, of course. And there's no one off the street that's going to be allowed in. And then you can, once you're in, then you can immediately get into, any of the labs as well. Some of the labs, of course, are locked. Obviously the radioactivity that's kept in a safe, and no one has access to that except unless you're allowed. And it's all, it's especially with the rules and regulations that came in over the years that got more and more reinforcing and more rigid in terms of how to operate as a scientist doing that kind of research.
Yeah, just trying to imagine how it feels like to be in those places that 99% of the world doesn't get. What it can. What's the feeling, or
It's interesting because it's like it's unique, but it doesn't really hit you until afterwards. I mean, I can look back on it and go, wow, that was really special time, in life. But when you're in the middle of it, it's just a routine thing. It's a regular thing. And you don't really think of it in that way. It's like, yeah, this is, as long as you're having I always say, life is too short to not have a lot of fun. So at least I was having a lot of fun, even though it wasn't my true passion.
I like that you hear your voice, that a lot of people sell themselves out like for opportunities that seem that they are good. Like everybody maybe says that, yeah, do that, but something inside of you says like, nah, I don't. I feel like there's something better that I can achieve.
That's it's a great point, because like I said, I was racked with guilt to have to leave the field, and I think it's very easy for people, if they're pressured from their parents and their friends, their teachers, whatever, to do something that they really don't love doing. And the thing is, it maybe what they love doing is not something that they can support themselves on, especially if it's in the arts. But I always just say, well, do something that pays the bills, but then you will always have time to pursue your passion, always, no matter what. And then you will build the following. If you're doing something that you're good at doing and you love doing, you're going to be good at it, and you're going to develop that following. We see this on the internet all the time. People start from zero, and then before they know it, they got a ton of followers in Facebook and Instagram or whatever. But whatever it is you love doing, do it. And because life's too short not to do it. And if you never make a big impact to where you can just quit your job and do that, at least you're still doing that. At least some of your life is devoted to your passion, because then, you're having a good time when you're doing your passion. So it's not time wasted, and there's more to. I always said, money is one aspect, and we just need enough of it to live, sustain ourselves. But many people have well more than what they really need. And especially I see this with a lot of lawyers in the States. A lot of my friends went into law because their fathers were lawyers. And there's a couple very good friends of mine who love it. They were fit for it. And I love that they love it. You can see it. However, there were some friends who didn't want to do law, but they did it because the money's good and it's prestigious to do that. That's two very bad reasons to do anything. So that's like kind of like it's almost like a check. You have to be able to check the boxes that what you're pursuing is not for the wrong reasons. Because money can ultimately be made in all sorts of pursuits. And so if you're doing something because something pays so well, like Wall Street's notorious for this. I have friends who, one of my friends, he was at Berkeley at the same time I was doing my PhD in nuclear physics. He was doing his PhD in mathematics, and he eventually became a bond trader at Lehman Brothers. And he's a genius guy, and he made so much money as a bond trader. He ended up retiring after, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, 7 or 8 years, something like that. He had enough. Now he could just retire, and he became a stay-at-home mom. Him and his wife had a child, and his wife works, and he stays at home and takes care of the kid. And he said, yeah, the Wall Street thing burned him out. I mean, the hours are really rigorous. It's intense. If you don't love it, then you will burn out. And this, the bond trading thing wasn't something he loved. It's just something he was good at. So he burned out, quit, but made enough that they don't have to worry about money. And his wife works because she loves what she does. So, but they're fine financially. And I see this with a lot of Wall Streeters. There is a saying like, go to Wall Street, work your ass off for 5 to 7 years and then retire. Because, good Wall Street position with bonus, you're probably making, at least $1 million a year.
Yeah. Well, back in the days, Wall Street was better. Like with the bonuses, you get like one bonus, 100,000 for 1 week or for a couple of months. I'm fuzzy about this, but the guys who worked there told that they made the deal with the devil. They sold their souls for the money, and yes, okay, I got some luxury, but I have some guilt on me. Like they come out and speak about this, and yeah, I'm pretty like I try to be, not try to be. I'm okay, I try to be, because there's subconscious things what I do, what are psychologically social like actions. We're used to use them, like wearing masks or something, like social masks. That I see that a lot of people can sell themselves, like losing what they are really. And I understood this really young age. So I'm happy that I'm 24 and I realized that selling your soul or not selling your soul is creating much more happiness, genuine happiness. And I just try to understand, more you understand why they do this, what's the psychology behind those things, more you can, stay a step back and do the right thing, moral thing, the thing from the love.
Right. Things fall in line when you're living what Ed Seykota calls right livelihood.
Well, like, I don't feel that it falls like ego says, I deserve more money, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of, I'm doing the right thing from my eyes, that I do what I love, or at least if I don't like this work, I'm gonna change to find a better work. I just want to feel happy end of the day. I want to be at work or happy to be at work and put my hours in and stay even later if there's there's some benefit for the world. But if I feel like I'm working for a guy who doesn't really care, who are you, what's your worries, you just came there to put your work in, even if you're a fucking good worker, they still don't respect you. Like, this is, and I'm in this position right now. for 2 more weeks.
Okay.
And but I never earned that kind of money in Estonia, and I still quit this job. I don't give a fuck about money. I'm here to genuinely do what I love, and I'm pretty sure the next work I'm gonna be more happy because I'm gonna put my work in to find the right place. But I feel like I'm stepping sometimes back. I was in Australia. I got really good money, like
Australian rates.
If I tell Estonians like how much I earned, they're like, "What? What the fuck are you doing here?" You know. But I came back earlier because I felt like I'm doing this. I'm earning a lot of money, but where's my happiness? I thought I'm gonna be happy when I'm earning like huge amounts of money. I'm not happy, and I see those people who are still doing this. No, well, I kind of feel that they're not that happy, but I understand what they're doing. They're getting that funds in. They have money to invest. I hope they invest in the right thing and what they love to do, but not to chase money, you know. Risk it for the like love, not risk it for the money.
Right, exactly. That's good. That's quotable, because when you risk something for love, then you're not, the thing is, you just have to know what your earning potential is and what you're passionate about. And when you start, your earning potential might be very low, and it might be very low for a few years. If you're try to break into whatever it is as an actor, whatever, you know, it's a very difficult, you know, there's so many people who try and fail. But if that's your passion and you just keep doing it, and you will get good. And, you know, or maybe, you know, there's also if you're a short guy and you're not athletic and you want to be in the NBA as a basketball pro, that's not going to happen. So, you know, keeping your expectations realistic. But if you're passionate about something, you're probably going to know how good you are. And I think the secret is to find the cross section between what you love and what you're good at and what adds value. Because if it adds value in some way, then you're going to make money. The money's going to come no matter what. And so if you cross-section all those things, you don't ever have to worry about money, because it will come.
That's kind of why I'm doing podcast. I see there's huge value what I can bring, because I have the balls to just be authentically, hey guys, like I don't give a fuck, like let's have a big talk and let's see what I can get out of Chris. What he can, there's some cold nuggets here. I can feel it, you know. And a lot of people don't have this confidence. One thing. Another thing is I'm bringing like right now, it's more opposite, that you're bringing more for me the audience or like the eyes. But in the end, if it starts to reverse. And for the viewers, if I have interesting guests or I tell myself some, you know, good stuff out there, I'm helping you, you helping me, we're helping the audience, they're helping us, you know, like it's like no brainer that to do this. And if I can market authentically in the podcast with, you know, I have few products like Lion's Mane, but I haven't got to the point where I feel comfortable to to share this here, or I don't know how still, but it just comes away. And then if I mix everything together, that's, you know, freedom.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you have all the ingredients to be successful. So yeah, I mean, it's great. You know, I'm glad to hear that what you're doing now ends in 2 weeks, and now you can really focus on the things you love to do.
Yes. Yes, a lot of rest time and looking inwards, more into. I feel like more if you're alone and you're thinking deeply, who are you, what you want to become. A lot of things what mattered for you doesn't matter for you anymore, because, you know, if you get out of like. A lot of people want to get rich just because to be away from other human beings, to have time for themselves. And a lot of people don't have this, you know, just 9 to 5 jobs, 5 days a week. It's not enough to just take time, for yourself and think deeply.
Right. I think the quiet time is essential, that people need to, if they're not doing it already, to cultivate it. And you can do it many different ways. Meditation is one of those very powerful ways. Just even, 5-minute meditation if you don't have the time, 10, 15, 20 minutes. That's all good. Some people are like real hardcore. They do 1 hour, 2 hours. But you just do something and you'll get the benefits. I find that when I just release from thought altogether, if I'm sitting in my sauna, or I could be something else. It could be, just sitting and thinking of nothing. So you blank your mind, but thoughts will inevitably stream in. But the thoughts that stream in are usually the thoughts that, if there's an issue that I'm trying to solve, those will be the nature of the thoughts. Mm-hmm. And sometimes as I relax, I'll come up with ideas that I might not have thought of if I'm really busy and my mind's, occupied with other things. So I think meditation is really useful for problem solving.
Are you meditating every day, or?
I would say probably at least 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. And because doing the sauna, that's an easy one right there. There's nothing to do in the sauna except sit and meditate. Mm-hmm. Although sometimes I do planks. So like I do a lot of biohacking and exercising and nutritional things. Mm-hmm. And so again, to the audience, do a deep dive into. There's so many techniques that have been proven in journals and then proven out in real life. And guys like Ben Greenfield are really good at bringing this to the forefront. And he walks his talk, and you can see it. Just his biological age, I think, is 23, and he himself is 38, something like that. And he looks great. But he like one of the things like planks. It's a great exercise. You do a 2-minute plank. A lot of people can't do 2 minutes. Sometimes I'm up to 3 minutes, and it's a lot of it just mindset. You can do that in sauna. I heat my sauna to 100 C, and I'm doing a plank, and I'll try to get up to 3 minutes. It's a little harder in there because it's 100 degrees, but you're getting more benefit when you're taxing your body in that way. So things like extreme heat, like that, 100-degree sauna, I typically will do that. I'll try to get out to 15 minutes in one go. And then I go right into the ice shower. Well, in the winter, the shower is ice. It's great. Mm-hmm. Now the water is not anymore, at 1 or 2 degrees. It's probably, 8 degrees, but you still get the impact of the difference. And sometimes I do 2 cycles of that. That's one biohack trick that is great for resetting the mind, especially if I've been sitting and working on papers or trading and whatever I'm doing. You can only do that for so long before you get tired. So like just walks in nature. Estonia is the land of forests. I think it's one of the most beautiful countries I've seen. And I can just walk a few paces and I'm like by a river and in the nice forest. And there's again, scientific articles that I've read have shown that when you're surrounded by trees and grass and things, it's not just the oxygen, but the trees are giving off other substances that are very therapeutic for your physical and mental state. And the other thing they found was just being in a forest dramatically increases your immune system. So it's great, if you want to max your health, doing a nice walk through trees, forests, or a jog, whatever it is. And then there's breath work. There's all these breath work tactics you can use when you're walking. Like every step of the way, I do a deep exhale and I see how long I can hold it. If I can hold it out for like 30 steps, and then I do a deep inhale and then I repeat that. So it's basically a kind of a Wim Hof technique, but not really. It's a derivative of Wim Hof. Basically, the idea with Wim Hof is that you train your system to hold your breath for longer. So a lot of people mistakenly believe, it's about oxygenating your blood. No, it's actually the opposite. It's just that you get to this, when you do deep inhalations, you of course are oxygenating your blood, but the idea is he's always holding his breath for as long as he can. And that's training your system to do with less and less oxygen. It's making it more robust by these breathing techniques. And I do them in the sauna as well. There's just the whole thing. The reason they go you don't have to go you can just go that's fine. It's just the vibration of your voice through your body. Again, that is something that's highly therapeutic. You can do that when you're walking. You can do that whenever you want. Just if you're balancing things, like say you're walking downstairs, and just the readers can, the listeners can try this at home. If you're walking down steep stairs and you're carrying stuff, you might feel a little unbalanced. If you just go or just start whistling, just your balance is really fast. You're like, oh, hey, this stairs are a lot easier now because I'm going and your balance. You have a heightened sense of balance. It's really cool.
This just recently I started to realize that I can stop kind of overthinking or worrying or judging just by doing not going with those things, but just observing this. It's a game changer for me. Like sometimes I like think too much, this, that, one of those, and then like but why I'm doing this? And then like and hum. I usually hum alone at home. Just
that's great.
For no reason, I'm like, oh,
perfect,
and I feel better.
Yeah.
It's just bringing you in the moment. Same with Wim Hof. I have done his breathing techniques. I hold it up with my best friend 3 minutes in the middle of the desert in Australia. We're just like, hey, let's try out new things. We're middle of nowhere. What else we have to do? And I hold it up like 2 minutes or something under icy water, and I feel the benefits. But sometimes I just fall back. I don't know why I have grown so much. Like I was drug addict, and I have like bad genes. Like I'm like the guy who needs to take his family roots together. Like there's a lot of shit what has fallen on me as well, because I see this like thing going on. My grandfather is he's gonna come on my podcast as well. He's 93 years old. He has done a lot of shit as well, like and I'm really proud of him. But yeah, like I feel like I'm falling back 2 steps and then coming with new energy, usually like again meditation every day, and those things help me to get back to there. But it's a struggle, like, and to come out, and I'm really happy for those people who didn't have to struggle that much, that they have those good genes and everything, that just a good childhood, because that I miss too. But I feel stronger having those experiences too.
Yeah, it makes you more robust and actually anti-fragile as well, because anti-fragility means you're actually stronger as a result of what happened. And whereas robust is more of a static state. So anti-fragility is really what I'm always going for in terms of everything, mindset, health, trading, certain things like cryptocurrencies are so volatile. So I become much more anti-fragile in terms of my mindset. So when my account takes a big loss because of the nature of, the market, I've gotten to the point where I don't in any way feel anything negative. There's no negativity or nothing. It's totally neutral and analytical, and I'm just, my mind's going, okay, how do I deal with this? That's interesting that the market's doing this. It's just purely like scientists, observing something. It's a nice because I've been tested so many times, and crypto has really strengthened my muscles in that sense. So because of that, I feel, I'm not just more robust, but more anti-fragile, because when we have these deep, I was caught off guard actually last year, June and July, in August, I did phenomenal. I was able to hit the right coins. I'm very good at finding the coins that are going to go up the most in that frame of time. But then early September came along, and not only did Bitcoin and Ethereum get hit, but everything got hit, not just, well, Bitcoin and Ethereum got hit the first couple days, and then they stabilized. And they stabilized for weeks. Actually, it was the next next 2 months. They were stable, and then they started going higher. However, the altcoins lost typically 75 to 85, 90%. Even the best ones, they just got sold and sold and sold. I was not expecting that. There was nothing that would have told me that, nothing that in hindsight that I could have done. And the reason that happened was because there was a constant delay of the stimulus package. It was sitting there, but no one would agree to the amount. And it just kept, I was shocked that this is being delayed over and over, week after week after week. And that was sending the most, the riskier coins lower and lower. So because I was exposed to the riskier coins, I saw my account, all that profit I made in June, July, August, I saw that profit shrink quite a bit. I was always still profitable because I'd done so well picking those right coins. But it's kind of this, it was like, wow, I've given back so much profit by sitting, I moved the money out of the smallest coins because of the highest risk, and I moved them into the better coins and better coins. So what happened was I took a big drawdown, but I was still in profit since June. So on a time-weighted basis, I'm still doing great. But psychologically, I was like, well, this is no problem. I have no issue with this. I literally was like, I never lose sleep over this sort of thing anyway, but I was just waiting for the turning point. I was like, well, the turning point's going to come because we're still in the bull market and they're going to settle on a package eventually, but there will be a turning point, and identified that turning point on September 2nd. Bitcoin was the first to turn off this basing pattern with volume. All the chart metrics panned out. And I looked at this going, okay, that's interesting. The confirmation was Ethereum started to move then about 2 days later. And I made sure I was focused on the four horsemen. Like this would be things like Synthetics and Aave. These are the coins that had the biggest runs before. And it looked to me like they were going to have, the biggest gains again at YFI also at the time. And sure enough, because I was concentrated in those, all that profit that I had lost, I regained in like 4 weeks. I mean, everything just shot back up. And what's nice is that kind of loss I didn't flinch. It didn't faze me whatsoever. And so I felt, even though I've been doing this for so long, I have evolved as a trader. I've become more anti-fragile. And certainly in this last go around with, Bitcoin and Ethereum tanking more than 60%, peak to trough. And my metrics, again, they're saying we're still in the middle of a nice bull run. And of course, there could be a black swan that hits. You never know. So that always goes back to, don't risk money you can't afford to lose. But right now, I'm feeling great about, where things are headed on a fundamental level in the crypto space. And it's just a matter of timing before I start moving money back into the higher risk coins that, not high risk, but higher risk, as in these are solid technologies and they've been hit very hard. And I think they're all going to come back up to their old highs pretty quickly.
Not shit coins.
Right. I mean, there's nothing wrong with playing a shit coin if you see alignment in everything that's going on and you have the price momentum and to get out and take your profits. Because some of these, especially if your account's small, then you could throw 5,000 at a coin and see it rocket up to 20, maybe in several days or a few weeks or something like that.
Like with Dogecoin, it was crazy. Like how much it gained with 1 year. What was it? The 18,000%?
Yeah, it's well, yeah, and off from the lows, it was actually much even more than that. I mean, it's we're talking massive like 50,000% and more gains
with Dogecoin just before the dump. I invested some amounts of money. I lost like 2/3 of it. Then I had the point where I was over a year now. I had this money in, and with Dogecoin, I had over it. Like I was in plus, but I got greedy. I was like, nah, this CNL thing is on. Elon Musk is gonna say something. It's gonna increase the price. And no, it went down. Yeah. I was like watching this and I was like, no, emotional because I already told myself, like, if it goes down, it's okay. Because I still have this amount of money.
You bought it a lot cheaper. So psychologically, you're playing from strength.
Yeah, it was a interesting time. I was really proud of myself that I hold it myself together still.
Yeah, and that happens often. That is that people sell on the news. Like good news is about to hit, so people think, oh, I better buy before because it's going to go up. It often goes down because people are selling on the good news, and that was kind of like the Elon appearance. I think was, and I mean the thing is, Dogecoin was also so overbought as well, and it needs to go through some sort of correction and basing powder, and the current correction is doing that for it. I think that I don't know if the run is over or not. The chart will tell. There were a couple of good buy points on the way up that could have been bought based on a chart reader. And we always talk about your chart eye. Your chart eye needs to be developed, and then you can find these low risk entry points. When the chart is just set up right. And early September was a perfect example of that. With a lot of these coins, the top performers like synthetics. It's just having a sizable position, and you're seeing the turning point. So what I did was I had some money in some other coins that were not these big four. So I pretty much moved a lot of that money into the big four, because to me, those are going to be the lowest risk, highest reward. So that's a no-brainer trade. And they all did phenomenally well. And then what I typically do is at some point their run is over and I see it in the chart. So I then start selling the position, take the profits, and move the money into other coins that are starting to look good, because that invariably is what happens. There's like a ripple effect. So when you have these great coins and they run their course, there's going to be new coins that enter the fray that can be bought. And in this case, there were some e-commerce coins that are basically giving deep discounts on sites like Alibaba, 21% up to 21% discount if you hold enough of the coin. And I tested this out, and sure enough, I got my 21% immediately. And I thought, this is unbelievable. This is real, And what they're doing is there's two different companies that do this. They either reward you immediately in fiat, so you're just immediately like the price is reduced by that much, or they give it to you in coins, which is fine because the coins are liquid, so you can trade out of them into fiat immediately if you want. So when I was basically the proof of concept, I proved the proof of concept to myself by actually utilizing the services of these two companies. And so I took positions in both of them, and they did extremely well, just shot higher. And then there was a time on the chart, again, they've gone up so much and they start to slow up and they start to go sideways. And I'm looking at going, well, I think the run is done for now, so I'm going to take my profits. And then I bracket the chart. Basically, if I'm wrong, it starts to go higher again. I can rebuy what I sold. But what happened was that was the peak, and these things started to go lower, 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 lower. And, they gave back. I mean, these were 10 baggers, at least 10, both of them were at least 10. One was like 12 bagger. And if people are still sitting in them, then they've seen most of their profits dry up because they did a round trip, but not all the way to the bottom. If you bought right, you're probably still sitting in like 200% profit, but it's a far cry from sitting in 1200% profit. Mm-hmm. So, the charts really light the way in terms of risk management. And that's why I always encourage people, when you're buying something, you got to look at the charts because they reduce your risk. And then, of course, look at the fundamentals behind what the company does to be able to isolate the company, identify the company as a real leading company. So things like Synthetics and Aave and YFI at the time were the leaders at the time. And of course, after I sold them, I never bought them back because they haven't shown leadership potential price-wise. So there's no reason to buy those back. But instead, we have other companies that have shown leadership potential, like Matic and Solana, and their price charts are monsters. It would have been great in hindsight to buy them a year ago and just sit on them, because like things like Theta has gone up 166 fold. So that's 16,000. 700, 500%. I mean, it's insane how crazy these moves have been in such a short amount of time. But of course, hindsight's 2020. The thing is that I am good at finding the key coins. I've done this many, many times, like 2017, even in June when the market topped, had a mini top. There was a coin called Ant Shares, which became known as NEO. And I went all in on that because that was the one coin bucking the trend. Everything else was falling. And that was because of the fundamentals driving it, because it's a Chinese blockchain. It had a great story. And so it was worth, taking a big investment in, and then it rocketed like 800% or more, from something like that, from my buy point. So then at that point, I started to spread the money out into other coins. I kept some in NEO, but then I spread it to other coins that were also looking really good. So I was able to, the last half of 2017 was a great run for me, because I was able to move the money into the right coins at the right time. So yeah, I mean, in today's market, it's the same kind of thing. I always want to be on the fastest horses. So time value is essential. I want, while this bull market lasts, I want to be able to, clear as much profit as possible. So it's a racing game, basically. So, but instead of driving a Ferrari Formula One, you're, operating capital, flying capital around, trying to make it bigger and bigger. And this to me, it's sport. It's fun. It better be, I always tell people, if you're risking money, you better love it enough that it's a fun game for you. And that if you end up losing a lot, it's still fun. Like, don't become emotionally attached to the money, because that means it's money that you could not afford to lose. So it's money that goes to zero, and you could just walk away and still be the same person and same life. There's no problem. And so when you're in that position, you're playing from position of strength, psychological strength, and you're much less likely to make the wrong decision at the wrong time, because the blockchain metrics have shown time and time again, the masses of people will buy at the high and sell at the low, because they're all trying to rush in because of FOMO. And then when things go the other direction, they get out because of FUD. And this pattern repeats over and over again in stocks, in crypto, real estate, you name it. So yeah, being able to break away from that pattern is really critical. And it is also the reason why over 90% of people who are investing in crypto lose money over entire cycles. If you look at complete bull to bear cycles, the whole thing, majority of people are losing money. They make a ton in the bull, but then they lose a ton in the bear. And they tend to do the wrong thing at the wrong time. And because of, the market has been so volatile in the last, say, year and a half, March 2020 was huge drop. And therefore, even if you're not selling wrong, if you're holding through March 2020, that's great. You didn't flinch. Of course, the market went straight back up, but you have to be able to, if you're trading this stuff, you still have to be able to manage your risk. And, there are so many pitfalls to giving back what you've made. If you're a good trader, even the best guys, I think they make a lot very quickly, but then it's very easy to give back a lot. And the key though is to sustain yourself. So it will come back in a bull market. You get these steep corrections, but they always come back, because that's the nature of the bull market. 2017, Bitcoin had lots of these corrections, 30 to 40%, and then it would go higher, new highs, 34% over and over and over again. And that can wear people out. And I mean, 2017 was a great year. However, it doesn't mean everyone made tons of money. There are people who they get scared out of the positions.
Well, where are winners, there are losers. I think it's okay, some need to lose when others gain, and hopefully comes your day when you analyze those things better. You have learned and experienced things that you can do the right decisions as well. But that's why I'm not afraid to lose that money, because I know that it's just experience, and somebody needed my money to get that profit. And maybe in future I get the money back. Right.
Well, you can also, I mean, you whatever you lost, you always still have some money left, and so that money can always be regrown, because the crypto market is so volatile that when Bitcoin went down to 30,000 and all these whales stepped in and bought, you could be one of those guys. You don't have to be a whale to buy at that level. You can just buy, because Bitcoin's now so cheap relative to where it was at 65,000. And that's the thing, is it's right now it's like around 39, 40,000, and therefore, I don't think I think ultimately Bitcoin should be higher down the line, and Ethereum should be even higher than that. So if your money is sitting in those coins, at these levels, if you take a position, just know that, it could just keep going higher and higher over time. And then it becomes harder and harder to buy because now it's back to 50,000 and then 60 and then it goes to
your
new highs.
motivation is lost, like holy shit,
right.
I
Right.
lost it again.
But if you dollar cost average and you buy today at, say, whatever it's at, 39,000, then let's say it does go down. It goes down, it retests, because let's say some of these governing bodies get nasty, ESG, and the Bitcoin energy consumption and all of this, and they start to, I've written some pieces on my website, The Virtue of Selfish Investing, about how, these governing bodies can control people's buying habits in Bitcoin. They can curtail it. Bank of America doesn't allow its clients to buy Bitcoin, but now there's these ESG scores on individuals that I think this case is, from what I understand, is if it shows you're buying Bitcoin, then your ESG score drops, and therefore banks may give you a higher rate of interest or not give you the loan at all for a home mortgage, car loan, whatever it is. And that can scare people away from buying Bitcoin. It can also scare institutions because institutions are getting graded on ESG as well. So this could be a tempest in a tea. It could be a problem if this were to get more serious and implemented into, say, what the U.S. is doing, in terms of its citizens and institutions buying Bitcoin. So that is one tailwind that I'm keeping an eye on, because if that really flares up, and then Bitcoin as a consequence is retesting the lows of 30,000 and maybe breaks below it, maybe. But ultimately, this ESG thing is not going to be, the death. Nothing's going to be the death sentence to Bitcoin. It will still find a floor and it'll start moving higher because there's too many of these positive effects going on. So, to people who are buying, say today, let's say it does retest 30, and you could buy again at 30. Let's say it goes then to 25, 24. That's pretty scary. It's going to be pretty bad news if it goes all the way down. The mainstream media will be talking about ESG and all these institutions are no longer buying Bitcoin. All these horrible stories are going to come out. And Bitcoin's used to this. It has a whole history, decade worth of these kinds of stories. So, the lower it goes, buy again. Dollar cost average, deeper, because your average cost is going down and down. And ultimately, Bitcoin is going to find a floor and it's going to sail up higher. And then your average cost is wherever it is. And when Bitcoin turns, you're sitting in more and more and more profit. And again, if you can still manage to keep buying it on the way up as it trends higher, like in 2017, there was a lot of these nice uptrends, your average cost is still well below wherever it's sitting. And the key with crypto is to identify the major top, which is not common. Bitcoin had a major top in December 2017. Then it had a major top prior to that in December 2013. So that's a 4-year difference. And since the major top in 2017, we have not had a major top yet. Some people are saying, oh, maybe 65,000 was a major top. I'm not seeing it in the metrics, and I could be wrong, but the metrics have not been wrong yet. And everything still points to we're still in the middle of a bull run. We're just in a deep correction. We had this in March of 2020. Bitcoin corrected just about as much as it corrected recently, and that was actually due to a hack of the Maker DAO. And more recently, this drop, the initial part of the drop down to, say, I think it was 50, it went from 65 to 50,000, 45,000. That was due to a hack of the Binance Smart Chain Venus system. So it's kind of the same reason behind the drop. And then the drop was made worse because exchanges froze up and then whales couldn't step in and buy, say, at 40,000. Plus you had all this FUD. So whales started to load Bitcoin onto exchanges, getting ready to sell it. And then basically it drove in a flash crash. We had Bitcoin lose thousands in like 20 minutes because the exchanges were frozen and there was no liquidity in the system. So price plummets, but finally there's some buying that can take place in the system, and you see a big sharp spike off 30,000 all the straight back up to like 37,000 in minutes. Very volatile stuff. But this is just the way that Bitcoin trades. It's nothing new, and so people who are new to this should study the charts and past history to see how what they're up against. This volatility is I think over time the volatility in Bitcoin will bleed out because it's going to get more mature. But right now it's still like a kid. Bitcoin's still a kid. It's not an adult yet. So it's going to remain volatile in the meantime, like we're seeing right now. And that's fine because once again, like people who sat through the March 2020 correction and just held their coins saw their principal probably drop by 80% and then recover. All the 80% that was lost recovered in a matter of 2-3 months. So straight down, and then 2-3 months they're back to their original level. But if they sold, then they're out in the cold. And this is true for every major correction that we've seen with Bitcoin and crypto, unless it's like a major top, because in 2018 Bitcoin lost 85%. Not good to be sitting, in coins that are going down that far. Although 20,000 was the peak in 2017, and it took till 2020, basically over 3.5 years for it to go back to the original 20,000. That's a long time. So market timing really pays off because, like I said, I was back mostly in cash by January of 2018. Didn't have to suffer that huge drop. And then I got back into the market in March of 2019 when my metrics gave a all clear signal. That basically it looked to me from the metrics that December 2018, that was the major low. And so far that's proven out. So we've gone higher since then. And Bitcoin, I think, bottomed at like 3,100 something. And my buy signal came in, and it's all timestamped on selfishinvesting.com. So I sent out a report on March 18th or something, and it was debating all the metrics. And the conclusion was, this is a buy signal. This is a major low we've had. Now we should be all clear to start moving higher. But that doesn't mean we rocket higher, and it means just overall we're going to trend higher, maybe sloppy fashion, and that's pretty much what had happened. 2019 we had a nice run up into the summer, and then a nice correction into the later part of 2019. So it's this, and then 2020 came along, everything looked really good, and then March came along with the COVID, the hack first of all, and then COVID made things even worse because people were frightened about the recession. Because they were saying, COVID's going to create the worst recession we've ever seen.
Oh yeah, the panic was everywhere. big names were saying like, 100 worst in 100 years, or even more worse than that. Yeah. Yeah,
and everything fell out of bed, like everything fell out of bed in 2008. There was nothing left untouched. I mean, even gold lost a ton. Everything just went straight down. But gold was the first to bounce. Gold was the first to go back. Recover its losses. I think it only took like 3 months after the collapse, because gold's a great store of value. But now Bitcoin's even better store of value. So, yeah, March 2020, Bitcoin was one of the first to recover the losses it had to endure, and I don't see that changing. I know there are some. I've had debates with friends. Some of these guys. One of them started the first Bitcoin exchange in London, and he sees that he thinks regulations are going to be a lot harder, and therefore it's going to slow the progress of Bitcoin and the crypto space. That's his view. I mean, he's running the first exchange there. I mean, he's come under the thumb of regulations in a hard way. This is the UK, of course, we're talking about. So, it's not Bitcoin friendly, and he's had I think he's been really weathered. He's been maybe, I wouldn't say scarred, but he definitely is aware of what can go wrong. But I'm taking into account what he says. I understand it. I respect what he's saying, but I also am a little bit more optimistic than him in that I do believe that this is technology that has ingrained itself in the internet ecosystem so deeply. It's become political in a positive direction. Finally, before it was all Bitcoin is. I mean, on this shirt that I made, these were all these quotes with a timeline. On all these different aspects of, back in the day, the internet is just for gambling and porn. That was said in 1995. Then people will never trust a website with their credit card. That was 1997. I remember there was a lot of credit card fraud back then. More on the back, but this was interesting. Ethereum is only good for scam coins and Ponzi schemes. That was said in 2018. 2018 was the big bear market. So it makes sense that these people would say these sorts of things, but they're always proven untrue in the end. If there's value, if there's real value behind the technology, then it becomes mass adopted and becomes like everything else. We take for granted. We take these for granted. We take microphones for everything is taken. Computers taken for granted. Flat screens, because all mass produced, they have great utility. So yeah, why not? Why not utilize?
One of the things what puts me to think that how much of the things around you or what you're using have you made yourself? Like this table is made by me, at least like one of those things here are like legit my made, but this phone, this pen, I don't own those things. Like somebody else made it. I don't know how to do those things. If everybody disappeared from this world, I would have this table.
Right.
Amen. But we haven't talked.
This is
2.5 hours.
Oh my! Wow! I was actually thinking, are we coming up on an hour and a half yet?
Dude, 2.5 hours. This is record of my podcast. I'm happy to have those conversations, but I'm a little bit worried that one of those phones can.
Right.
Yeah. Just but I would love to continue in like.
After we're regulated, we can, that gives us a couple months, I think, and then we can talk more, follow up.
Yeah, and then we can go deeper in other things but yeah, you first time I understand a bit more about crypto. Like I like know something, but now I at least have something. You explain me what I didn't understood before, and I'm really happy for it. And I hope it can spread around the internet.
Absolutely. No, it's great. I like your page. It's set up nicely. You just quickly link anyone to whatever the talk is, so it's easy peasy. And I'll leave on the last note that I was going to ask you about this table, because it's absolutely gorgeous piece of work, and it's an art form. And this, I think we're meant, all of us are meant to create whatever that creation is. It could be writing something, it could be a poem, it could be playing a piece, creating a musical piece, whatever the creation is. It doesn't have to be traditional, but I think that's one of our purposes is there's a lot of joy in creating something that's new.
I will answer you this question about this table. This is made by love, hundreds of hours. This wood is juniper bush. You can smell it. It has its own smell. The horseshoe here is this horse saved my great grandfather. They went with a big carriage of hay over the ice, and they fall in. But the horse was so big, it just went through the ice.
Wow.
And the next day they even bring the hay with the carriage back to home, and they could feed their family and their animals. It's crazy. And
amazing. Wow.
I was in Australia, and I was like, when the COVID hit, I was like, what the hell I'm gonna do? Like, I haven't this work, and yeah, I have enough money, but what I'm gonna do next? And then I was like, I should do a business but it wasn't like what I want to do. Hey, I have listened to podcasts 7 years, over 10,000 hours of a lot of things like epigenetics, crypto, politics, a lot of things. And I was like, dude, I need to do a podcast. And I love to do wood art. And I was like, I'm going to make a table, like a huge table that my guests are coming in. Great. They're like, whoa, what the table, dude. And they're just I think if you're watching this table or like if the setup is good, you feel more comfortable. You're like around art. You don't even recognize the cameras.
And that it's wood in this form is it's such it brings such peace, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, this is magnificent. I mean, this is really something.
All right. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
It's been great. Really great.
Bye-bye.